Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, and so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show. Booyah.
Hey, here we are back in studio. Wow. Look at this outfit that Mike has on. Mike, you got to show people your pants.
Sure,
here.
absolutely,
Let's see the pants.
Show off the goods.
I came in.
I mean, what is happening here?
Bro.
Well, this is how bizarre Mike is, that his uncle bought a gift for him and this was like a normal gift because Mike is an oddball.
Well, they were on my Amazon wish list. And
were they really? No?
Yeah, they were. I don't take offense
Yes.
to your categorization of me as
an
an oddball.
oddball?
Not at all. What do I care? These are very comfortable. They breathe well.
Yeah.
I wanted to show them off. It was a nice gift. And so why not?
I love it.
Who am I trying to impress?
By the way, oddball to me is a compliment because people that are not oddballs, and it's because I could think of myself as an oddball also, people that are not oddballs are boring.
They are, right?
I have no interest in people that are not oddballs.
No, it's tedious. Have you ever been to like a backyard barbecue with
Exactly,
a bunch of
squares?
Oh my gosh.
Now, we're all oddballs in different ways. G is definitely an oddball as well. He sits up all night watching YouTube videos
Yeah, I'm
and
strange.
playing
I'm
Pokemon.
strange.
I don't know what he's
I'm
doing.
strange as hell.
Yeah.
But them pants, I see them.
That's
myself,
crazy.
Bro. There's only a couple people in the world can get them off.
Yeah, who's
Only
that?
a couple people. You.
Other than me.
Gold Dust.
Maybe like 2 Kardashians.
Carrot Top. Can
Yeah.
Get that off.
Is he dead?
No.
No, don't wish that into the
He takes
world.
steroids now.
Yeah, he's jacked, that guy.
Yeah,
It's
he takes
disturbing.
steroids,
You ever met
yes.
him?
No, I have not. But it is a disturbing contrast, like how Jack Carrot
Yeah.
Top is. We gingers are not supposed to get that
Is it
cut up.
because everybody would make fun of him, and now he's like, I could better
I
kick
think
their
so,
ass?
but I think it's like so much more easy to make fun of him when he's
Yeah.
Jack, right?
Yeah.
Like
Does
it's
anybody
because
find him funny?
he's actually. I think he's very talented. I think he's extremely funny. It's not my brand.
Yeah.
It's nothing that but I think. I mean, the guy's had like a residency in Vegas for like 20 years
Yeah,
because.
so obviously people like
Yeah,
him.
Midwest really likes his stuff. I think he's very creative, very
Yeah.
smart. I can't crap on Carrot Top, although Chairman of the Board is one of the worst movies of all time if you've ever seen.
I have not seen that.
It's awful.
We got to take a deep dive into your comedian. Who do you think who is really funny and how I have a theory that if you're a funny comedian, you only have a 3-year shelf life. Like who was wasn't the guy called Larry the Cable Guy?
Right, yeah.
Like
Yeah, but some guys, he was big for a while.
And then
but
you
there were
fall
some
off.
guys that, remember for a while when I was like a teenager, Andrew Dice Clay was like the biggest
Huge.
star.
And then he
Huge.
fell
I never
smooth
found
off.
him funny,
Yeah.
but
I think he'd be considered mildly problematic today.
you think?
I do. Just if he didn't
By
change
the
his
way,
act.
it's funny because like recently I got into because sometimes it's like I talk sports all the time, and then when we talk, and it's like I get in the car, I don't want to listen to sports anymore.
No, yeah.
So there's nothing worth listening to. So I've been listening to some of the comedy channels on Sirius, and so I find like I knew some comedians, whatever, but and there's some comedians I see their name, I'm out because it's
Yeah.
not my cup of tea. Maybe other people like them. But usually, I don't find Southern comedians funny ever. Almost never.
Interesting.
But there's a guy, every time I hear him, that cracks me up. His name is Nate Bargatze. You know him?
I don't know him personally, but yeah, he's very funny.
He is really funny, this guy.
got
I
a
wanna
good
see
drawl,
him.
though. You're right.
Yeah, there's something about it. Usually those Southern comedians, they tell him like all these Southern jokes. I don't know. He's just really,
He is. He's very good.
he's really funny. I'm
Yeah.
not into the, what's his name? That Jeffrey Wright. Is it Stephen Wright?
Stephen Wright. Yeah, you don't like
that
Stephen
type
Wright.
of comedy.
Right, the one-
Who's the other guy that does that type of shtick?
It was Mitch Hedberg. He
Right, Mitch
passed.
Hedberg.
Yeah,
That's not my cup of tea.
Those kind of weird esoteric one-liner kind
Yeah,
of. You
yeah,
don't
yeah.
like those.
No,
Yeah, different
okay.
strokes for different folks.
Exactly. Who's your
I don't like
favorite?
puppets, so I'm not a big
Puppets.
Jeff Dunham fan.
No, I don't like Jeff.
But some people like puppets.
Yeah, I
Go
don't
watch your
see it.
puppets.
You like bro comedy, like the Dane Cooks?
No, I'm not much of a bro comedy
I'm not a
guy
Dane
either.
comedy-
no,
Dane
not
Cook guy.
really.
Yeah,
I like
He was
annoying.
hot for like 4 seconds too.
He was.
Everybody loved Jim Gaffigan, and I wasn't really into him. Now I've totally gotten into him.
Okay,
I think
yeah.
he's great now.
I think Dane Cook at the time, I enjoyed Dane Cook at the time of Dane Cook. I did
Yeah.
because I thought he was I was younger and he was
Right.
he was a great performer.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was, but I grew out of him. Like a lot of, that happens.
Who's your favorite right now?
There's a guy named John Mulaney who I think is the funniest.
Okay, yeah,
he's
I know who he
I think he's the funniest pound for pound
McNuggets and I
comedy.
saw him live when he came to Cleveland.
Yeah, he's
very
fantastic.
Very
Although,
good.
and he's like he just got divorced because he got all coked up again.
Yeah.
And then I don't wish that into the world.
Yeah.
But now he's touring again. I'm like, I want to see that post-divorce coke tour because
yeah.
you know he's going to have some great stuff to say.
That would be good.
Yeah,
I also like. Gosh, I just forgot his name. He had a TV show on HBO for a little while. He doesn't curse in his comedy. Well, neither does Gaffigan, and neither does. Oh, shoot.
How much are people hating us just kind of remembering the names of comedians right now? I don't mind personally. I'm just wondering about the audience. They don't care for it. What if we say Deshaun Watson right in the middle of it?
Once again, I threw a whole grenade into the rundown.
Yeah, how did that come in?
Sorry about that.
Comedy.
I said.
But the bottom line is we love the pants.
And think about this. If somebody's cruising through right now and they're seeing just this live stream, they're going to click to see, like, why is he wearing pants?
Exactly.
Those pants? This thumbnail is probably going to get us, like, an extra, like, at least 10 clicks.
That's
Somebody
true.
probably clicked on just now because they saw these pants. You fell for it. We got you. Stick around. We've got some great stuff for you today.
Does he have underwear?
By the way, I've been watching this show on Hulu called Welcome to Chippendales.
Oh, yeah. You
Right,
said that. I haven't seen it yet.
And like that, I picture, a lot of the Chippendales dancers. So you could become a Chippendales dancer.
I actually, as part of my long storied life that you guys will never understand, I actually did, for a story package for Fox 8, dance with the Chippendale dancers.
Oh, you did?
I did not, in Vegas. I did not get, obviously, full Monty. Because it was...
You should have.
No,
you should have gone all the way.
It was local Cleveland television. I couldn't have my donger. I wouldn't have anyways. Can you imagine?
I was about to say, please don't. If you would have hit me with the.
No.
You do know I was a male dancer at one point.
No, it was like a jokey thing. I had the bow tie on and I was shirtless and stuff. It was very pasty, very gross. But I'll tell you what though.
Go Mike Polk.
At that story we recorded their part after their show. You don't record the show obviously, but as part of the package.
Yeah.
The women are amped up after that thing. If you were a creeper dude in Vegas, that show's going on every night. This is my advice if you're visiting Vegas. Find out where the Chippendale show is. And then just, if you're a creep, say you're some creep, and,
Good thing you're advising creeps right now.
just letting you know, if as long as you're an above board creep, don't do anything, But if you're just looking for ladies or something like that, they get them all those probably mostly gay oiled up dudes on stage, get them all amped up for you, and then when they're just coming out, it's just like a trout coming up the stream. You can just be a bear and grab them coming down the river.
All you gotta do is deliver on.
It's already been set up.
Hey,
It's like the ball's on the team.
Hey, listen, sacrifice fly works, bro.
So that's my advice.
All right, guys. I think we're gonna switch it up here.
Why?
From comedy. To naked men, to a man with a great body. That's Myles Garrett. Let's talk about Myles Garrett.
Absolutely.
Before we do that, you know how Myles Garrett got so strong? Anthony?
Yeah, Myles Garrett, he loves to eat Built Bars. Can confirm he got some for Christmas using code LOCKEDON15. And as we transition into Browns Talk, we'd like to remind everybody that Browns Talk is sponsored by Cuyahoga Community College. Tri-C supports the students financially, professionally, and personally, and opens up the door for endless possibilities. Tri-C is where futures start. Start now. Classes begin January 17th, 2023.
Most of my friends went there.
Again, Anthony's from Parma. That's why he says Cuyahoga. I feel like only people from Parma say
Cuyahoga. It's Cuyahoga. Come on.
Tri-C, great college.
Great
college. Myles Garrett, guys, the news broke when we were on the show yesterday, and now that you've had 24 hours to let it settle in, give us your first thoughts on Myles Garrett being held out of that first series.
Well, that was the first shot. It's the Cold War. I talked about this a little bit, and everyone likes to kind of, tamp down. It's not nothing much here. But let me tell you this, man. Kevin Stefanski and Myles Garrett have had a smoldering Cold War for a while. You talk about the incidents in which Myles Garrett, would call out the offense or the defense and saying that you're not having no adjustments. He's been very vocal about certain defensive adjustments. He's also been a dude that will talk to the media. So when you look at what he said or when you look at what Coach Stefanski said, and he came out and said, "Yeah, that's my choice." I think this is the first of something that you're gonna have to watch for the next year or so, because Myles Garrett or whatever the case, I think Mary Kay has already come out and said it was due to something like maybe not reporting something as far as his illness or something. That seems to me as low-key passive-aggressive energy. That's something you could do. Like, that's something that, if there's a protocol towards what you got to talk about or report to somebody, that's something he probably could have did, right? But my problem is, or my thought process is, Myles Garrett, like a lot of other people, do not like what's going on inside the Browns coaching staff. So, and I've said it before, what's the best way to get under a coach's skin is start doing your own stuff. And you'll start to get that attention. And that's the way you saying, protesting, I don't like this. And it's almost showing a way, well, look, he's sitting me down for not reporting this, that, and the third. He didn't say Joe Woods down nowhere. And he didn't mention Joe Woods by name. So he's just setting up like, look, you have a lot of other things to worry about besides me being ill. I show up, I get 15 sacks a year regardless. Is this the hill you want to die on? I think this is a part of a bigger conversation as long as this thing keeps going forward.
Mike, what say you?
I don't think it matters all that much, frankly. I think that it's overblown. I know that we aren't supposed to be in the know about what happened, but it's an internal thing. I don't see why this seems like one of those things that it just, I know we feel like we're some duty to get the truth out about these things, but what good usually comes of that? Sometimes it's better off if they obviously don't want to talk about it. Let's just let her lie. What do you say? I mean, if it becomes a recurrent thing, then you have to do something about it, obviously. I think though what's interesting is what could it have been if he got any sort of disciplinary action? What could it have been that was worse than him speeding and wrecking his car during a pivotal part of the season? Because he didn't receive any kind of a punishment for that. So
yeah, that we know of.
I mean, that we know of. Right. Well, we didn't see it.
No.
Obviously, as soon as he was healthy again, he didn't get set for one snap for that. And so, whatever it was, apparently there was something recurrent that they finally had to address. So that might lead towards being a speeding ticket, maybe, or something like that. But even that's just reckless speculation on my part. But it is strange that he didn't receive any kind of punishment for that. Which, even at the time, I know that it's very hard to sound like anybody should take me seriously when I'm wearing this kimono and these pants. But no, you shouldn't anyway.
We didn't even address the kimono, by the way.
No, I know. Well, what else goes with these pants?
That's true.
I own this kimono before Christmas. No, but even at that time, I remember and you guys kind of gave me the business just a little bit because I was just mad at Myles Garrett for doing that. Right. And that was when the city was still in its phase where we were just we were sort of acting like he was a hero for getting into a car wreck. We're as if he was attacked by a road or something like that. We were just can you believe that Medina road just came out of nowhere and almost hurt our best player? But in reality, guy was doing 100 down a farm road in Medina, could have hurt somebody else, could have been way worse. But we were all just so grateful at that point that he wasn't injured that we just sort of just forgot to get mad at him for it. So maybe it has something to do with that. But regardless, I'm fine with just letting it lie. At this point in the season, do we really need to? What do you think?
Well, here's my take on the situation, guys. First of all, there's a lot of people all year that have been getting mad at Kevin Stefanski, and there's a lot of things to get mad at Kevin Stefanski about that are legit. His job, he did not do a good job this year. If forget grades, if I have to go thumbs up or thumbs down, simple like that, on the job Kevin Stefanski did in 2022, I give him a thumbs down. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I would give him a thumbs down for 2 out of 3 years. And if it becomes 3 out of 4, then he loses his job. But he may lose it before that. However, in this particular case, many of us have been saying, where's the accountability? Why is there no accountability? Well, in this case, there is some level of accountability for his star player. And now people are mad. Some people are mad. I'm not so sure if you're mad. Are you mad that he got suspended, G?
No, that's
not suspended, but benched for a series.
I don't really care. If you want to bench him for a series,
yeah.
I think more of these players' behavior is undercover protesting.
But to me, and you may be right, to me that's disappointing. And whether Myles Garrett probably doesn't give a rat's ass whether I'm disappointed in him or not, but I find it disappointing because clearly Myles Garrett has made at least 2 bad decisions this year. He was recklessly driving that led to his accident, and I, like many, just gave it a pass because, most of us have done it.
Right.
Most of us have recklessly driven. But when we do it, like with Myles Garrett, it's a bad choice. I have been a reckless driver at times. It was a bad choice by me. I got lucky that I didn't flip my car. Same thing here. Myles Garrett was being a reckless driver. It was a bad choice. Now, we all make bad choices sometimes. Now, but what happened in this case, and we don't know exactly what happened. Yes, Mary Kay is reporting that he was sick. Maybe there was some lack of communication here. We've heard some other things behind the scenes. Who knows exactly what's happening? But if Myles Garrett is pissed because he has no help on the defensive line, and he's been here a number of years, and they've not really given him any help, and he's frustrated the team's losing, and he wants to go to the playoffs, that I get. Totally.
Right.
If at the end of this season he wants to demand a trade, if I'm the Browns, I wouldn't trade him, but if he wants to demand a trade, that I get. Whatever. But if your protest is to not show up or miscommunicate the week of a game when, as slim as their chances were, the playoffs were still on the line, to me, that's being a bad leader.
Yeah.
He's not just a teammate. He is a leader. He is a captain of this team. And that doesn't mean now I think he's a bad guy or a bad human being or any of that. I don't think we need to make it bigger than it is. But I think he made a bad choice here. And I think it's important that Kevin Stefanski did what he did, because in life, too often, whether it's sports, politics, whatever it is, media, stars get away with stuff that the regular Joes don't. And I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong. Whether it's nepotism, sexism, classism, right? Rich people get away with stuff that poor people don't. Racism, all the isms you want, right? These things play a big factor. And in reality, I understand that's just always the way it's going to be. It sucks. I don't like it. But things, in a perfect world, things should be fair.
Right.
If I'm on a football team and I do something that violates team rules and I'm the 53rd man on the roster, I should get the same penalty as the number one guy on the roster. There shouldn't be a harsher penalty for me because I'm the 53rd guy. It should be the same thing. Now, obviously, things don't generally work that way.
It works.
The way life goes.
It is the way life goes. But if I was in charge of the world, it wouldn't go that way.
I'm going to give you an example of this.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you an example. When I was at OU, we went 1-10 one year. Worst year of my life. Now I came out of high school. Our existing coaching staff, every one of them had left and went to Wake Forest.
Right.
They left one coach behind, and I was in between thinking like, okay, do I want to transfer or stay here? I decided they talked me into staying there.
Right.
So I'm there. We get our coach, who was a previous coach, and we go 1-10. After we go 1-10, I'm rethinking a bunch of stuff. It was the most miserable year of my life. Like, I didn't know what offense we was running. The defense, they completely switched. By the time we got to the second year under this coach, they brought in another coach that was my D-line coach, and he didn't know anything. He was like he had just came from some high school. He played safety. And he's telling me, like, about D-line. And I'm like, bro, this dude has no clue. And then there was a time it just dawned on me. I'm screwed. I am completely screwed here. These guys, we have no chance of winning. The game plans was rudimentary. We was running the ball option on 4th and 9. We were getting blown out. So you know what I started to do? I started to do little things that I felt like didn't count. They would be like, all right, you're not allowed wearing your socks high. I go get the longest socks I can find.
On principle.
Just on principle. They're like, well, we said you couldn't wear socks. And I remember going to an office and being like, you worry about my socks, but your coordinator is calling the worst calls of all time. They're unorganized. They don't know what you're doing, and you're worried about my socks.
So you're saying they're reacting. That's your theory, is they're reacting to poor management and coaching and leadership.
Yeah, so when you got somebody in front of you and you watch that game plan and you know beyond a shadow of a doubt there's no way we can win doing this, and you keep losing and you keep losing and you keep losing, and you're looking at your head coach like, please do something about this. Get this dude the heck up out of here. And he doesn't do anything, then you start to look at him and say, you're sacrificing my career. You're sacrificing the well-being of the team. And you won't get rid of him, and you don't even have a good reason not to. So what reason do I got to report to you? I'm not reporting nothing. Do
but
what
in
you
the
need.
end, in this case, they're still fighting for the playoffs. And he's letting down his teammates. When you're a captain, G, you have a responsibility to your teammates to be a good leader, to be a good example. I get it. And he's spoken out, and I don't have a problem when he speaks out and he's critical of the coaches. I don't have a problem with that. And I wouldn't have a problem if Kevin Stefanski ripped the players. He doesn't do that, but I wouldn't have a problem with it.
I believe he's the leader.
Yeah.
So if they cool with him doing that, that means everybody think that way. He wouldn't do this if there was people in the locker room that thought differently of the staff.
Right.
Because guess what? Certain people will pull you aside and be like, yo, what are you doing, bro? We need blah, 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 blah. We still got a chance.
Right.
Because the leader is doing that, that means he got a bunch of people behind him saying, you know what? We done gave with, listen, we throw our hands up too. We ain't got no time for it.
One of the issues with this is that we talk about Myles Garrett as a leader, and I feel like that's a role that we have really thrust him into because of his ability and because of his tenure. I don't think that I'm not trying to put him on the couch or anything like that. I don't pretend to understand the inner workings of Myles Garrett, but I've never gotten the impression that he's a natural leader or a very comfortable natural leader. I think it's been thrust upon him again because he's so good that we're just like, well, he's the best. Sometimes just by being really good at what you do, people just assume that you are in charge of that. You know what I mean? And I don't. Well, even when we hear about him as a leader, I don't think he's ever been fully comfortable in that role. And it's ideally on your team that your best player will also be your best leader. That's not always the case, though. Sometimes some of the best leaders are some of your more subpar players, and sometimes your best players aren't great leaders, and sometimes it's in between. And I think that he's an example of that.
I think that's fair. I think that's a problem the Browns have in general. I mean, Nick Chubb does all the right things.
Yeah.
Never says anything wrong.
But he also never says, come on, guys, follow me into the breach.
He doesn't seem like, and again, maybe behind the scenes he is a little more fiery. I don't know.
We've never gotten any word of that.
But the star players on this team don't appear to be like rah-rah leader guys.
Ray Lewis-y enough.
When people say he's lost the locker room, Stefanski has lost the team.
Yeah.
No one really drills down on what that really means.
Mm-hmm. Well, but do you think that's the case? Because you think Stefanski's lost the locker room.
I think Stefanski, every single week, he keeps Joe Woods on his staff, he loses credibility. Because because every week you don't make any chances. He's preaching to these people, we're trying to put you in the best position to make plays. And then you hear people on the defensive coaching staff say, it was tough because
that was embarrassing.
And so think about that. As a defensive player, you're like, how can you say that? You are a leader of men. Men aren't stupid. These guys aren't dumb. These dudes have been playing football for years, since they was kids. And they know Joe Woods is costing them games.
I think it's fair to say that the defense, listen, I don't know anybody personally in the locker room. I know you've had some communications but for the people that have been in the locker room, we've heard the team doesn't believe in Joe Woods, but that Kevin Stefanski has not lost the team. However, I do think if the team doesn't believe in Joe Woods, that you're probably right, that there has been some loss of faith in Kevin Stefanski. The question is, if he comes back for a fourth year and he hires a better defensive coordinator that the team believes in, can he regain that faith?
Yeah, he can get it back.
Yeah.
They just looking forward to him to be like, no, you the ultimate leader. You the dude over everything.
Right.
You can go change it. I remember being mad when I was upset. I used to do things like I would get CEOs on my report cards. My mom was very strict. And she would put me on punishment and say, you can't play video games for 9 weeks. You can't do this for a few weeks. You're not going to be able to go outside and do this. But the one thing my dad always did, which I always appreciated, was even when she would be upset that I got C's and she wanted to take it to another step and say that I can't play sports, my father knew that as a young black man, that's the only thing that's keeping this dude that's 6'4", 250 pounds from being in the streets, even though I got a mom and dad. So he would step in and say, well, yeah, you're not going to play no video games and you're not going to do that. But on the other hand, I'm going to go to bat for you because I think that's out of pocket. I understand the greater good. And when you look at, I respected him as the leader of our household because he understood the moment and he said, nah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. And people look for Kevin Stefanski to say, when there's terrible play calls or when there's something not going right, they want him to walk over to that defensive room, knock on the door, and be like, we're not running that no more.
Yeah. And that's fair. I also don't think it's mutual. I understand Myles Garrett's frustration more than anybody else on this team. He's been here a long time. He and Bitonio have been here the longest, right? And he has to and Bitonio's had good players put around him on the offensive line, and Myles Garrett hasn't. I mean, they've had nothing but trash, pretty much at defensive tackle. Clowney's been solid at times, but he's not a big-time pass rusher. He's a better run-stopping defensive end than he is a pass rusher. And when you look at the other great pass rushers in the league, they generally have a lot more talent around them than Myles Garrett does. So there are people who are stupid who say Myles Garrett's not that good because maybe he at times is not as impactful as some of the other pass rushers. And yeah, he doesn't put up sometimes the stats that those other guys do because those other guys aren't getting double teamed nearly as much as Myles Garrett is.
Right.
That's a factor. But for me, I hold Myles Garrett to such a high standard that even with his frustration and as pissed as he is about Joe Woods, and I agree with him, and as pissed as he is that Kevin Stefanski has left Joe Woods in there, I still think it's the wrong call, in my opinion, for him to handle it this way. Because there's other ways that he could do it.
Right. I'll agree with that. I think there's a definite other way you can handle yourself other than just throwing a grenade in the room and watching it go off, right?
Yeah.
Right.
There's an opportunity for you to go up to talk to Coach Stefanski. If Myles Garrett really wanted to be affected, he'd go talk to the owner.
I wonder if that's happened. I wonder if Myles Garrett has sat down with Kevin Stefanski and put it out, hey, Joe Woods is not, we got to replace him.
If not, then what is the holdup? I mean, you got to man up and do that, don't you? Isn't that on him at some point? Like Myles Garrett.
Sure.
He's got to have that conversation.
I would wonder if they've had that conversation. Now,
you can't beat around the bush and just be like, boy, I wish there were some changes around here. You got to go right up, or else you can't be mad about it.
Right, and I'm sure,
in my opinion.
I have to believe Kevin Stefanski may not ultimately fire Joe Woods, but I would have to imagine if Myles Garrett wanted the audience for that kind of conversation, I would guess that Stefanski would give it.
And it's also up to Stefanski, though, if he is even sensing that might be an issue, to call Myles Garrett into his office and say, how do you feel about
that? That should have happened. Maybe it has.
Right.
Both those things should have already happened.
Yeah, if we're at this point and neither of those things have happened, then that is gross misconduct on both of their parts.
And I will always say this, though. You go look at Joe Thomas's career, and I asked him, one of the first questions I ever asked on this show was when Joe Thomas was on, I said, would you rather a Super Bowl ring or a gold jacket? And he paused, and he said, that's so hard because the ultimate goal of anybody to play is to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And Joe Thomas, we see his career. The messed up part about it is we will never mention him as an all-time top 10 great player because he does not have anything to show for his time here. And he went through ineptness after ineptness, and he was loyal, and he said the right stuff. He never rocked the boat, but he retired with no rings and not even sniffing the playoffs.
No, that's true.
So when you watch that, nobody's going to go up to Joe Thomas and say, good job for not calling Rod Chizinski out. It was great that you didn't say anything bad about Pat Shermer.
He went the opposite. In fact, he always used to praise every coach as if they were great.
He praised them.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you, Myles Garrett, you looking at this and be like, well, I saw the way it worked with that.
Yeah.
I know for a fact I'm probably going to get that gold jacket. But damn it, I need to have something to show for this. And right now they don't.
Yeah. Let's bring Mary Kay Cabot in. We love Mary Kay. She covers the Browns, of course. She has forever.
Look at that.
Forever. Let's not get
Look
carried
at that
away.
Christmas
Look
tree.
at a different angle.
Wow.
Different angle. Hi, Mary Kay. Did you have a nice Christmas?
I really did. I had a great Christmas. My daughter that's going to school in Canada right now.
Right.
Came home. She hasn't been home for 3 years for Christmas, so that was great. And you can see our lovely Christmas tree here, which I love. Every year I love my Christmas tree so much, so I had to sit in front of it for this.
Mary Kay, where's she at in Canada in college and what's she studying?
Isn't she the one who's the acrobat?
Yes, she is.
So cool.
She is an acrobat, and she is in a circus in Quebec City. It's sort of Cirque du Soleil type training, and it's pretty cool.
That's crazy.
So does she like come into the house and start doing flips and jumps and all kinds of things when she comes home?
She's been flipping around this house since she was 2 years old. So yeah, you just never know. You know, if you're going to see her with her, leg up next to her ear, or whatever the case may be.
That's cool. That's like a superpower, just to be able to
That is.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yes.
hey, Mary Kay, let's talk about this situation with Myles Garrett. I know you reported yesterday that he was sick. There was some miscommunication. Have we learned anything more since you last put out that article?
No, not really. I mean, the only thing is that, one of my takeaways from the whole thing is that Kevin Stefanski is not playing favorites here, even though Myles Garrett is the star player, the leader of the team, a team captain. He made some kind of a mistake, apparently, according to the team, and and they disciplined him accordingly. We don't usually talk to Myles until Friday, so I don't know if that will be the case this week when we get back into the locker room starting tomorrow. But we will eventually get his side of the story, probably, if he decides that he wants to talk about it, or he might not talk about it because he chose not to talk about it, to this point. Right. So I don't think it's a huge deal, but I do think it's significant that Kevin disciplined him the way he would any other player in this situation.
Mary Kay, when you look at this conversation, we just talked about it with me and Bull, and we said, hey, why don't those guys get in the room and just kind of talk things out? Maybe there's some frustration there. Obviously, when you're losing, Myles been here 7 years. They haven't really made a dent into making the playoffs or going deeper in the playoffs. And obviously, everybody wants to win at the highest levels. Have you heard in the last few years of sitting down with Myles Garrett and Stefanski, just talking about everything from the scheme to not really being successful in the playoffs? Have those guys sat down and kind of hashed it out yet?
Well, certainly they need to continue to do that, and Myles has gotten very vocal over the last couple of years. So I would think that that Myles will hash whatever he needs to out with anyone. He'll talk to, I'm sure, Andrew Barry or Jimmy Haslam. That's the level of player that he is. So you definitely want to listen to what he has to say. Now, I think it's been sort of significant that over the past couple of weeks, he has come out in strong support of Joe Woods, which I was a little bit surprised about that. I thought perhaps that at least he wouldn't be as vocal about it, or just kind of lay low if he felt a certain kind of way. But he actually has come out in support of Joe. Now, I don't know if that will mean anything in terms of Joe keeping his job, coming back as defensive coordinator. But I do think it's significant when your star player seems to be in your corner.
Mary Kay, it's 2 seasons in a row that are going to end in disappointment, end under 500. We can make all the excuses and the reasons we want. I was just saying this to G yesterday because, like, when Watson got suspended for 11 games, G and I both picked the Browns to go 8-9. However, if you had told, part of the reason we both picked them to go 8-9 is because we thought Jacoby Brissett would not really play that well. At least that's why I thought. If I knew going into the season that Jacoby Brissett would play as well as he did, I would have picked them to win probably 10 games. So to me, based on how Brissett played, they should have been better because the defense has been a huge disappointment. So to me, Watson being suspended is not an excuse for them to finish with 8 wins or less. 2 disappointing seasons in a row. Is there any chance that Kevin Stefanski's job is in danger heading into these last 2 weeks?
Well, first of all, I agree with you on what you just said. I 100% think that they should be contending for the playoffs right now. They should be in the mix, and there's no excuse for it. And you're right.
Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett did his job. He exceeded expectations. And if
Absolutely.
the defense and special teams had just carried their weight, they would have a couple of more victories right now, and they would be in the thick of it heading into these last 2 games. And that's definitely how it should have gone. However, I don't think that Kevin is on the hot seat because I do think he does get somewhat of a pass this year because of what happened with Deshaun. And I also don't think that this organization wants to pull the plug on Kevin Stefanski when he's only had 6 games with Deshaun Watson. The good times supposedly are about to roll beginning next year, and they don't want to shake everything up. I really believe that they want him to be here and to see this thing through. And then the other part of that is that one of the reasons Deshaun Watson wanted to come here was because of Kevin Stefanski, because of the session that they had together when the Browns flew to Houston and how he felt about their conversation just about football. So I do think that everyone wants to see how these two guys are going to fare together.
Mary Kay, your background looks so good that it looks green screened, by the way, just so you know right now. It does. We were talking earlier about Myles Garrett and how he feels about Joe Woods. He's going on the record supporting him. And we focus on Myles Garrett, obviously, because he's Myles Garrett and he's the focal point of the defense. But what about anybody else on the defense? Have you gotten a vibe? I mean, has anybody else gone on the record for or against Joe Woods on the defense outside of Myles Garrett? And if not, then have you gotten a vibe from them one way or the other?
Well, first of all, most guys on the record are, of course, going to support their coaches and their defensive coordinators most of the time. And, you know, you're not going to stand up at a microphone most of the time and say, no, we think this guy needs to go. I mean, that usually doesn't happen, obviously. So I understand what you're saying. Is there a vibe? Now, the reason why I do think it's significant when Myles does it is because he doesn't really pull any punches. And if he feels a certain kind of way, you know, I don't think he would stand up there and say the things that he did. So I thought that was significant. But it just in terms of the vibe from some of the other guys, I think there probably are some guys here and there that think that, you know, maybe things could have been a little bit different. Maybe they could have been used a little bit differently. And these are all things that will have to be scrutinized and examined after the season. And those players should definitely speak up. They should speak up to Kevin. They should speak up to Andrew Berry or whoever they feel that they need to do that with to make sure that everybody is on the same page and ready to roll for next season.
Now, when Myles says that, is that a signal to the rest of the locker room? Is that his way of saying, does he have that kind of sway on the defense where that's a signal to the locker room, him saying, we support this guy as a unit? Does he have that much sway? And if so, do they listen when he does that?
He does have that much sway in the locker room, and they do listen. Now, the other thing about that is that, you know, they were still in the thick of things, at least, you know, to a degree. They still had things to play for when he made those statements. So he might have been also trying to kind of get everybody focused, get everybody's heads together, make sure that they could get through their last 3-4 games together and all be pulling in the same direction instead of everything going haywire. Mm-hmm. So, you know, maybe he doesn't necessarily 100% feel that way or believe that should go down that way. But in that moment, that's what needed to be said.
You know, Mary Kay, I want to kind of parse this out a little bit. There was a comment Andrew Berry made. I want to say it was at the bye week. And Andrew Berry said that we have just as much faith in Kevin Stefanski now as we did when we hired him. Now, when he says we, I do believe Kevin Stefanski was here before Andrew Berry. Is that correct?
Yes, but you know what? They were still part of a package deal because Paul DePodesta and Andrew Berry wanted to hire Kevin Stefanski when John Dorsey hired Freddie Kitchens. So they were sort of a package deal, even though the timing might have been a little bit different. So, you know, when Andrew Berry says that, and when he says he's talking about Paul DePodesta, he's talking about the Haslams, he's talking about the whole ownership group, J.W. Johnson. They're all still in alignment on that.
So I guess the question I'm getting at here is, if they decide that Prefer or the strength and conditioning or the defensive coordinator or the scouting, who's making the decision as to whether to move on from those guys? Is that up to does Stefanski get the last say in that, or is that going to be Aditi Kinkhabwala, Andrew Berry, a little bit of Kevin Stefanski making the decision as a whole?
I would think that it will be an organizational decision. I don't think that they will leave Kevin Stefanski to have to make those big decisions all on his own. I think they will collaborate. It will be Kevin sitting down with Andrew. They work so closely together. So those two guys will basically kind of be driving the bus with plenty of input from Paul DePodesta, and I'm sure from the ownership group as well. But Kevin won't just, be sitting in an office deciding, hey, I think I need a new defensive coordinator. They will collaborate.
Mary Kay, how much, often on the show, some of the guys complain that Kevin Stefanski really is like, I do the offense and I leave the defense. Is he involved at all? And if so, how much with the defense during the week?
He's involved, yes. He is involved with the defense, not anywhere near, of course, as much as he is with the offense, because he has to help install the game plan and he's going to be calling it. So I think for the most part, he trusts Joe to do his job over there and to trust the offensive staff. But he does have to oversee everything, and the buck stops at his desk. So I do think that, he is involved to a degree, but not anywhere near as much as he is on offense.
Mary Kay, Kevin Stefanski is not, and he doesn't need to be, like, his personality is what it is. Sometimes the fans want him to yell more but he's just kind of a mild-mannered guy. Even when they win and he does the speech in the locker room, it's not the most fiery speech on the face of the earth. So my thought is, if they do move on from Joe Woods, which we all think they should, but obviously we don't know, I certainly think they should, that he seems like kind of a mild-mannered guy too, at least publicly what we see. I feel like they kind of need that badass, not Greg Williams specifically, but somebody with that type of personality on the defensive side that's going to be a little more of an ass kicker. Do you think that they could use that in this organization?
You know what? I don't really know about that, because I've seen so many different kinds of coaches get the job done regardless of what kind of a personality they have. You've got the Dan Campbells, the fiery guys that can get the job done. You've got the Bill Belichicks that get the job done with, not the greatest personality in the world. And, he doesn't show positive emotion very often. So there's just all different kinds of coaches. I think it's really mostly a matter of, just being able to put a good game plan out there. I mean, sometimes you can have players that pick up, that ball of emotion and put it out there on game day when you need it. So I wouldn't say that they feel like they need to go out and get themselves, a real fireball or anything like that.
Mary Kay, will you engage in just a really quick, little harmless psychological exercise with me?
Sure.
It's a word association. I just need you to say the first thing that comes to your mind, and be honest when I say these two words. Are you ready?
I don't know if I'm ready. Sometimes I actually accidentally swear during these, so I'll try not to.
Do it.
All right, great. Perfect.
We like that.
Mike Prefer.
Challenging year.
Wow.
Am I only allowed one word?
No, you could say whatever you want. I just really wanted you to be honest about what you think, what kind of a job he's done, and what you think his future's looking like here.
Again, I think special teams and defense did not live up to expectations this season, and they will get a really good hard look in the offseason. And over the next couple of weeks, they're going to sit down and they're going to scrutinize everything about those two units, and they will decide if those coaches are coming back or if they're not. And I think it's just, something that you can't deny it. I mean, again, if they had done what they needed to do all season long, I think they would have at least 3 more victories right now.
Do you think that, and I know this is I don't mean to make this an awkward question or anything like that, but do you think Mike Prefer deserved to be here this year based on the past couple of years? I feel like we've been down this road several times.
Well, they haven't had stability at kicker, and that's always really hard. And then they really haven't had any returners to speak of. And it's very difficult when you're trying to be the special teams coordinator and you don't have key guys at key positions. Now, Cade York was, right? I mean, he was supposed to come in and really stabilize the kicker job. And it just didn't happen. I mean, he really struggled, especially at home. So, does Mike Prefer get a pass for that? Possibly, we'll have to see. But I think the Cade York situation is one that they are also going to have to deal with in the offseason. I mean, he's got to get his issues worked out because they cannot have that position be a liability next year.
I'm sorry, one more follow-up on that. We asked this the other day. The chances, why isn't Phil Dawson in here just like working with this kid every single day? Whatever we got to pay him, back up that Jimmy Haslam money truck and just dump it on him?
I think it'd be a great idea. He's one of those guys that Cade maybe should check in with in the offseason, spend some time with him, do some clinics with him. Or, as you mentioned, bring Phil in here. I mean, certainly Joe Thomas has worked with some of the offensive linemen. He's worked with Jed Wills some. So when you've got a kicker like Phil Dawson at your disposal, why not use him?
All right, Mary Kay, give me a percentage here. The percent chance that Alex Van Pelt calls the plays for the Browns next year.
I think that Kevin Stefanski, once again, and to hear Deshaun tell it, he really likes Kevin. So I don't think it's time to remove Kevin as play caller after only what I consider to be 4 good games with Deshaun Watson. The first game was the Rust game, and this past game was the Ice Bowl. So I think they'll have about 4 decent games that you could look at the tape and evaluate it. I don't know that that's enough to decide that Kevin is not the guy to be calling plays for Deshaun Watson. There have been signs that he's going to be good for Deshaun. So I think that they would like to see what Kevin can do with him into next season. Now, in the event that the first quarter of the season doesn't look all that great, or the first 6 games isn't going the way that you want it to, that's the time to reevaluate it and see if maybe you might want to do something else.
And just a follow-up question to his offense. Kevin Stefanski has been a run-heavy guy. He's utilized 3 tight ends. Do you think that Stefanski has to dramatically revamp his offensive philosophy to kind of fit a quarterback of Deshaun Watson's skill set? Or do you believe he's on the right track now?
Well, I think we're already seeing signs that things will be different. I mean, we've seen a lot more 3 wides. We've seen a lot more RPOs, more designed runs. Again, the weather hasn't been conducive to some of those things. But I think that, yes, I think you will see him drastically alter the offense, and it will evolve as time goes along. As Deshaun has more input and says, hey, I need to do more of this. I mean, they're going to listen to Deshaun Watson. He is their investment. He is their cash cow. He is their $230 million man. So what Deshaun wants, Deshaun is going to get. And I think that Kevin Stefanski has enough influences on his career that he has the capacity to call anything or run anything for him.
Mary Kay, the Browns locked up Jack Conklin this week. We were very surprised by it. I think we were all assuming he would be a cap casualty at the end of this year. He missed most of last season. He hasn't played great this year, especially in the run game. And he's not young. I mean, he's not old, but he's not young. Are you surprised that they went down this road? And they're spending a lot of money on the offensive line, and they're going to have to deal with the cap for the first time in forever. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I was not surprised. I had written about a week before that they were looking to extend him, and then we had talked to Jack, and Jack was talking about wanting to finish his career here. So you knew that something had to be in the works for him to be talking like that. And again, I was able to find out that they were very more than willing to extend him, and so not really surprised about it. And I think the thing is, I mean, it's really hard to find good tackles. The thing to remember about Jack Conklin from this year is that he was the first year removed from a torn patella. That is a hard surgery to come back from. When he's 1 more year out from that knee surgery, he will be that much better next year. But even 85% of Jack is better than most right tackles. He's a 2-time first-team All-Pro, and he will be better next year. So I think this was a great move.
What about Jed Wills? How are we feeling about him right now?
I think, Jed made some steps forward this year. I think he's got another few levels up that he can go. I think they will pick up the 5th-year option, which they can do by May. That's a club option, and that is for the 2024 season. It's only in the neighborhood of about $14 million if you haven't made any Pro Bowls. It's kind of the minimum 5th-year option for him. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer for them. That gives them 2 more years to develop Jed, to see if they can get him up to the point where they want him to be, which is at a Pro Bowl level. If he doesn't get to that point, maybe they start to reevaluate it then. But as of right now, I think they will move forward with Jed and try to continue to bring him along.
Mary Kay, Deshaun Watson's been obviously slowly coming back to becoming Deshaun Watson over time with some bumps along the way. And my question is, what's his confidence like right now? You're around him all the time. Does it seem like is it where you want it to be, where it should be, or is he a little shook right now by being rustier than he thought he was?
Yeah, no, I don't think he feels that way at all about being rustier than he thought he was. The first game, definitely, yes. I think that caught him off guard, but that was as emotional as it was physical. So I think now, you could see, some of the joy during the Ravens game. In this past game, I thought he actually crossed another hurdle. He had that team in position to win the game at the end, despite the brutal, horrible conditions. So I think he did what he needed to do there in the very end. I mean, it was tough sledding throughout the whole entire game. And I do think that the strategy could have been a little different here and there in the game. But he put them in position to win. And I think it was another box checked for him, that he can handle some of these kind of elements.
Mary Kay, last thing, heading into the offseason, obviously, retooling the front 7 is going to be a major priority. The defensive front is terrible outside of Myles Garrett. Defensive tackles are horrible. But on the offensive side, if they're going to change this offense, which G was talking about, you were suggesting they're going to do, obviously with Deshaun Watson, you still want to, ideally, Deshaun Watson throws for 4,500 yards and Nick Chubb throws for 1,200 yards, and you have a dynamic offense. It seems like to do that, they need to have one more receiver. Obviously, Amari Cooper's good. Donovan Peoples-Jones has continued to progress as a late draft pick, but they do need that one guy that could probably be the 3rd big-time receiver to go over the top with some speed. Is that a priority, do you think? Should it be, and will it be for the Browns this offseason?
It 100% definitely should be a priority. And I think they need it to be like a speedy, shifty guy, almost like, there are not a lot of Tyreek Hills running around out there. But if you could find somebody in that mold, I think that is what they need. They need to add some speed. They need to add that, that sure-handed guy and somebody with a Pro Bowl caliber level of talent. That's what he needs for sure. So I would go ahead and do that. It should be a priority. I don't know yet if it will be. I don't know if they see it that way. They might think, hey, we've got, some of these younger guys that are going to just take that step up. But, one of your speed guys, Anthony Schwartz, you just have no idea if he's going to turn into a good NFL player. So you just can't count on his speed for next year. You don't know if he's even going to be able to make the team. Right. So I would go out and I would find that guy for sure. And I would make it, it would be my number 1 priority for the offseason. I don't know if they see it that way, but I think that's what they need to do.
Mary Kay, you're the best. Have a great, happy New Year. You doing something exciting for the New Year? Any big parties?
Yes, I am actually. Yeah, I'm going to Washington, and I'm going to be covering a football game. I'm leaving on. All right. Leaving on New Year's Eve and going to cover the game on New Year's Day.
Have fun. We'll see you next year.
All right.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, guys.
Mary Kay. We appreciate it. She's the best. I think my voice just cracked like I was Peter Brady.
I know. It sounded like you got shy around Mary Kay at the end.
To change, trying to rearrange. That's a Brady Bunch reference, folks.
I went and saw Greg Brady do his one-man show at Kent State, like he does the guy who plays Greg Brady.
Oh, yeah.
His name
Recently?
I forget. No, it was when I was at Kent State.
Is he
so it was
still
like
alive?
20 years ago.
Yeah.
20 years ago he was.
Yeah.
Barry Williams was his name. And
Right.
he came out, and even at the time he was probably, 55 or something like that. And he put on the Johnny Bravo jacket, and he did the dance, and it was cringe. And we went because it was cringe.
Yeah, sure.
We weren't like, this is going to be an an amazing production.
Yeah.
We went, and sure enough, it paid off in spades. It was real brutal and very poorly attended too. Oh, it's so deliciously cringe.
I took something really great from that last one, man.
Yeah.
I took away the fact that I feel like Mary Kay just basically said, as I put words in her mouth, that
Tell us what she said.
in subtitles. I feel like Kevin Stefanski don't even got the authority to fire Woods during the season.
That may be the case. And we've been critical of him not firing Joe Woods, and he might not have the ability to.
Were you under the impression this whole time that he had the ability to do
I
that?
always assumed the head coach can fire an assistant coach.
Yeah, like I hired him.
Now, she didn't say with 100% certainty,
But
it is a team decision.
She said they got to sit down and talk, and it don't look like people don't like to sit down during the season and talk about none of them things. Like, it sounded to me like, yeah, he has an input on it, and they may have already had a situation where they've thought like, hey, in passing, we're probably going to move on. But they haven't had no big meetings about that.
Now think about this, though. Mike Tomlin is about to fire their defensive coordinator. Does he give the Roonies a heads up at least and say this is our plan?
Sure,
you know what I mean. And if the
I would think so.
and if the Roonies say to him, "We like that defensive coordinator," does he say, "Well, I'm firing him anyways"? I would imagine this is almost like.
My guess is that organization, if Mike Tomlin wants to fire somebody, he fires somebody.
Yeah.
I'm sure out of respect for the owner,
You'd give him a heads up so they're not caught off guard.
Or the GM, right?
The GM, but I can't imagine Art Rooney Jr. or whichever Rooney is in charge now saying, no, Mike, well, let's keep the defensive
But he's
coordinator.
clearly earned the trust.
Sure, he's been there a long time.
There's some that have not.
But I don't know. I just think the head coach has to have the ability to control his staff. And if you don't trust the head coach to control his staff, well, that's a problem either with you or with the coach.
When you got somebody that's chief of strategy, like strategy is in everything. How you evaluate the players. What defense do you run? What offense do you run? What do you call on fourth down? What do you think about this guy? Trade value. Like, strategy is a very wide thing. So I can't imagine that DePodesta doesn't have some sort of blueprint as to what type of defensive coordinator that they would like, the temperament, and how they go about finding that guy. So to me, there was never an option for them to fire Joe Woods during the season. With that much of a chain of a command?
I know, that's disappointing.
I was going to ask her this. Or I'm sorry, is Aditi here? Let's ask her.
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
No.
I was going to ask her this. You can answer this. If in the event, heaven forbid, Joe Woods were to take his leave from our team and our fair city, does anyone spring to mind right off the top of your head that would be an excellent replacement? Who would you be excited about getting in here?
I'll tell you, I don't know if you brought it up yesterday, G, or Tyvis, I don't remember, but Brian Flores, who was the head coach of the Dolphins.
I love that man.
I think he's got, at first I was thinking Mike Zimmer, but Mike Zimmer's a little old, and he's doing with Dion right now. Maybe, I think he'd rather have an NFL job.
Sorry, Coach Prime. Sorry.
Coach Prime, good point.
Yeah.
I think,
and you got to think like somebody who would be like a good contrast to Stefanski, right? And who would work well with him.
Yes, Brian Flores is a very different personality than Kevin
Which
Stefanski.
might be very good, right?
He's more of a hard-ass type of coach.
Okay.
I think they need that on defense.
Yeah.
And something I don't know who somebody said it this morning. You were mentioning, you heard somebody say this, and I agree. Like Brian Flores, if it goes south with Stefanski, you could make Brian Flores the head coach because he's been a head coach in the league. Now, none of us want that to happen. We want it to go well.
Right.
But I think Brian Flores, if I remember correctly, in Miami, they played a very aggressive style of defense.
Very aggressive.
Right? And that's what this team needs. You have corners. Denzel Ward is at his best when he's playing aggressive football.
Yeah.
And he should be a Pro Bowler. I mean, he really should. Now, some of it's on him, certainly this year. But I think Brian Flores is a good choice.
I do too. I like him. One of the things that we haven't talked about though is this: we a couple of years ago we went through a few different regime changes, and the one
I love just listen to that sentence.
Yeah,
a few, just a couple
regime changes.
There we go. So when you
As
got
if it's a coup.
Yeah.
when the military dictator took
Kim
over,
Jong usurped the throne from his uncle.
Right. Then he poisoned all his other family members.
Yeah.
Now, we've gone from 4 3s to 3 4s to Mike Pettin ran a hybrid, and then somebody wanted to run nickel 85% of the times.
Yeah.
These things matter because if you want a defensive coordinator and you just like him because he has the temperament you like, does what he wants to run coincide with what you have on the roster?
Sure, absolutely.
And so it could take you 4 years to transfer from a 4-3 to a 3-4.
Right. And this team does need to transition their talent up front, but the talent you have in the secondary, it's staying. Like they're not
there.
We may be down on Grant Delpit, but he's going to be here next year. I mean, maybe John Johnson is gone, but Ward and Newsome and Emerson and Delpit, those guys are all back. Like they're going to be here. So maybe you change one of your safeties out, but the front seven, I would think there's a lot of flexibility. But yeah, I mean, if you go to a defensive coordinator that wants to play a 3-4 now, that's a pretty drastic difference.
Very, because now you say, what do I do with Myles Garrett? He's not really a 5 technique, which is head up on a tackle.
Yeah.
It could help you in one way or shape or form. You don't need disruptive linemen. All you need is guys to take up blocks.
Right.
So you can, Jordan Elliott could take up a block, or a nose tackle that gives you no pass rush ability.
Yeah.
Can take up, but here's a problem. You need 2 middle linebackers.
Yeah, they don't.
Got one.
They need to stick with 4-3.
Yeah, but that is the nice thing, though, about having, if they did want to implement some new kind of system, like what are they going to do? Screw up what's going on now?
Yeah,
and it's, with it, like if you threw this at these players next year, would they just be like, we can't adjust, we already had this figured out? They obviously
they don't have it figured out.
That's what I'm saying.
No.
So it can't be much of an adjustment.
Guys, before we're going to bring in Aditi in here in just a little bit, but first I want to talk about memberships. Gee, we got a new thing for the last couple of months here where we've been allowing people to become members. There's the starters tier for $1.99, and then the coaches tier, which we love, $4.99 per month. Well, if you're a member of the coaches tier, you get exclusive access to the bonus content that we do almost every day. I'm not going to guarantee every day, but almost every day when we're in studio. We hadn't done it Friday or Monday because we were working from home. But today, we're going to do some bonus content. I believe we're going to talk about the Guardians in overtime today. And that's content that's in addition to what we're talking about on the show that you will exclusively have, plus the emojis, plus the shout-outs, plus the badges and all the other
I'm going to add something else, too.
Yeah.
I'm throwing this out there. I know that we haven't cleared this or anything like that, so this legally might not stand, but I want to contribute to this and to say thanks to the top tier members. Let us know when your birthday is, and I'll send you a personal video message in which I tell you some depressing facts about existence. So on your birthday, I will send you.
I know I'm a couple months late, but can I get a video for that?
Sure, of course. I'll send you some depressing facts. So on your birthday, if we have, you tell us when your birthday is, I'll send you like 3 depressing facts just about your existence. So that is just for the coaches tier.
That's like Cameo. Like he's gonna give you a cameo. And
Yes.
like, yo,
I
what's
do
up?
my cameo videos.
Do you know what would go great with a depressing video too?
What's that? A Built Bar?
Cleveland whiskey.
Oh, good,
Cleveland
yeah.
Whiskey's Christmas bourbon is available
No
now.
doubt.
Visit your local liquor store to take some more home today.
Yep.
Whiskey without limits. Please drink responsibly.
Cleveland whiskey and a Built Bar. That's called a Cleveland breakfast.
And we do have
Cleveland
this.
whiskey.
This isn't even clear yet, but we are working on something for the coaches tier where we can communicate with you guys during the game. We don't have it all figured out yet, but we're trying to figure out a way to get more interactive.
Stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned for that, but it's going to be really cool. You might like it.
We also have one more thing upcoming that we should pre-plug, and that is that we played fantasy football against. You guys played fantasy football against.
He was in first place all year.
The entire
and he got knocked
year.
out in the semifinals.
Who's winning now?
It's me against Jason for the championship.
That's exciting. Congratulations.
I destroyed Earl. I destroyed you, Earl.
Show a little bit of class.
He's sitting back here. He is not happy.
And I think this league is cutthroat. It's either first or second. We don't do third.
No, third place does get your money back, your initial entry fee.
Okay.
So you still got to play for third
So I
against
got to
Earl.
play. Okay.
And you're playing Earl
and
for third
dignity.
place.
You guys play that out. So, but if you recall, the punishment for the worst record, that person has to do 10 minutes of stand-up comedy on a show that we'll put together at Pickwick and Frolic, the best comedy club in the nation, which is right in downtown Cleveland on East 4th Street. And so we're going to get together. We haven't set the date yet. We're kind of figuring that out. But it's going to be like a night and you can come out and see these fellas and then you can watch
gonna be
our
awesome.
producer,
be
Mikey
there.
McNuggets, who lost.
Yes.
You can watch him hopefully bomb. I hope he bombs.
How long is this set?
10 minutes.
So
And then Anthony's going to warm up with 5.
So
I'm opening the whole show.
Yes.
It's gonna be
Oh,
McNuggets,
this
Are
is
you
and
are
then
gonna do it?
Yeah,
You are gonna do
it's
it?
fine. I've agreed to it.
this is
All right,
crazy.
that's gonna be fun.
Actually,
Are you going on after
I'm
them?
going to open up the show so that they don't murder
you're the
him.
moderator,
Yeah,
right?
so yeah, I'll be like explain what's
host or
going on.
whatever.
So
Yeah.
they can actually come.
It would be-
Pickwick and Frolic. And
Yeah.
see
Will there
this?
be any besides you? Will there be any other real comedians?
Yeah.
I'm right there, Bull. Come
We'll
on.
make sure of that. And I'm actually thinking about this, and I think this might actually be funnier just because, as I said, I think this is a layup for them because they'll bring friends and everything.
Sure,
So the reaction will be good. And plus everybody will know the situation.
Right,
so
it's gonna be funny.
They'll get the benefit of the
Like
doubt.
even if they suck, it's funny.
But I think what I should do is I was going to bring them up. I think it's funnier to just not bring them up and make them go up cold.
Yeah, like
That's better.
It just come through.
So just be like,
kinda
hello?
hard.
I
Icebreaker.
know, but that's funnier.
It is funny.
You know, like he got to get control of the crowd.
Yeah.
And just be like, hey guys, I'm about to start. That's it. I think I want that
That's
to
gonna
happen.
be so
I can
awkward.
barely control a 3-person show.
Yeah.
A crowd's gonna be really.
I know
interesting to me.
So. Anyways, if you want to see that, we'll be
pull
letting you know the dates.
Yeah.
It's upcoming.
What are we
and
thinking?
It's gonna be a
Like March,
blast.
maybe, or
I think we were.
sooner than that?
It's a surprise. It'll probably be sooner than that.
Okay.
But we're gonna keep it a surprise till we
right.
we'll make our big announcement.
all right. Well,
and we'll have Anthony.
We got to
we'll
make sure. We got to make sure it's a day where everybody can come.
Sure, that's what we'll make sure of. Anthony,
nobody
you're
can
gonna
miss this.
have to make the graphic for the poster to have people come and watch you eat your nuts.
yeah.
I think I'm gonna talk to Mike when he comes back from vacation tomorrow. We're gonna do a really fun poster. We're gonna get some
right.
headshots.
Good.
It's gonna be a good time. But let's bring in Aditi.
Aditi Kinkhabwala with us now from CBS, of course. She's with us every week. Aditi, how are you?
I'm great. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Looking
Same
forward
to
to the
you.
new year.
Did
Turn
you have
the
a
page
nice?
on.
Have you thawed out from being on the field?
I'll give you credit for that. I give you credit for
Okay,
that.
so let me at least say this.
Yeah.
The Browns organization is just as classy as could be. I am technically not allowed to go inside the bench area. I totally, when the players weren't there, was whatever the word is, sponging off of their heaters. Brad Mellon, the Browns equipment manager, gave me extra warmers. He put this crazy cayenne pepper baby powder mix inside my shoes, which I think I told you guys last week. I was most worried about my toes. My toes were fine. He gave me extra hand warmers. Andrew Barry, general manager Andrew Barry, beforehand had said, hey, are you good? Are you all right? If you need anything, don't hesitate. So I really, really, really appreciate that they're cared about everybody on that field, not just their
When
players.
when you got home and you took your boots off, did your feet smell like barbecue?
No, I couldn't smell anything because my nose was frozen. Everything was frozen. My entire body.
How does that work? Cayenne pepper and baby powder. How did that work?
Who came up with that?
Yeah, who was trying different spices until something hit?
Yeah, but you know what's so funny? Now I'm suddenly like people keep tweeting at me paprika. So I don't know if in my first live shot I actually said paprika and baby powder instead of cayenne pepper and baby powder. But now I'm like all confused. But it's basically just a hot red spice, and I guess something activates it, like your feet activate it somehow.
Can't you
I
go
don't
back
know.
and watch it? You didn't DVR the game?
Would you want to rewatch that game?
No, but you could go back and like just watch your first report
facts.
and see what you said.
I could. You know what? I could, except the truth is that I drove home that night. I had to clean my house, wrap Christmas presents, and the next morning was obviously the Christmas, and then I had to cook for my husband's family and my parents, my brother, my sister-in-law, my niece and nephew all come in from New Jersey. They're all here right now. So it's kind of been a complete madhouse, and I'm sort of looking forward to my game this weekend as opposed to,
Gesundheit. All I'm hearing is a bunch of excuses
yeah,
for why to not
basic.
watch that Browns game again.
Are they all staying in your house?
Yes, correct.
Put them on camera.
You see, that's the my in-laws now when they come, they stay nearby, not in the house.
She has the estate. The estate is fully
You know,
lodged.
I guess I don't have as fancy a house.
No, not that. My son is sleeping on an air mattress in my third room and with his cousin and whining.
That's
that it's
fun.
cold. Yeah, and then so yesterday I gave him more blankets, and he said, "Well, now it was too hot," and it's really just looking for excuses, basically.
All right.
The sun.
He's had enough of the holidays at this point.
The sun always gets a raw deal, though. We do always get the worst bed.
That's true.
We're just like I would have
Suck
to
it up.
I'd have to sleep sitting up in a wooden bedroom or dining room chair sometimes.
I'm gonna ask you this. I gotta talk about this because this hurt my heart. I did not in a million years think that the Pittsburgh Steelers this year would have a better record than the Cleveland Browns.
They better not finish over 500.
How?
I'm gonna be so pissed.
How is this possible, Aditi? How?
It's a story of football. Look, this is who the Steelers are. This is who the Steelers have been under Mike Tomlin for the last 10 years. They're always competitive. They're always in it at the end of a season. I mean, even the Duck Hodges year, even the year that Ben Roethlisberger blew out his elbow. And if you're in Pittsburgh, your frustration is that, okay, well, you have 3 playoff wins in 12 years. Who cares if you're competitive? Go and win something. But that is part of why the Pittsburgh Steelers are one of those milestone organizations, is that they're always in it. And there are pieces, and they come up with it. I really do believe. And I'll use the Jaguars as an example because I saw the Jaguars earlier this season. I had them weeks 4, week 5. I had them again a few weeks ago when they won finally, and I have them this weekend. And a young organization, the Lions, I had the Lions, it's the same thing. A young organization needs to learn how to win, needs to learn how to get out a win at the end of the day, at the end of the game, needs to know how to pull in that pass that seemingly can't be pulled in, or to catch the routine pass. Hint, hint, hint. It's your job. Do your job. The best organizations and more veteran organizations figure out how to gut out those plays in the last few minutes, no matter how cold it is, no matter how tough it is, no matter how done you may seem to be. You get big plays from big players. A team like the Jaguars couldn't do that earlier. They couldn't figure out how to do it. A team like the Lions didn't know how to do it. I know I've quoted this on the show. I remember saying to Dan Campbell, how do you teach young players how to win close games? And he said, you know what Bill Parcells used to say? The way you learn how to win close games is by winning close games. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, for decades now, it is just their organizational ethos. They will always have someone who comes up with a big play, and they know what it is to get guys like that. A guy like a Kenny Pickett, he's a gamer. He's never giving up. He's not going to give you the big throw every single game, but you can count on him in moments. And so I think that that's just it. The Steelers know how to do that. The Steelers have figured out how to do that. A lot of that has to do with Mike Tomlin having done it for as long as he's done it. And unfortunately, the Browns on Saturday couldn't get some big plays. And it's hard. Look, let's be honest. Catching a football when it's minus 15 degrees, when the wind is doing all these crazy things. I mean, we saw so many incomplete passes that were truly beautifully thrown balls that either bounced off of somebody's hands or at the last second the wind took it in a different direction, all those things. But you want Amari Cooper to make a catch. You want David Njoku to make a catch. And they may not seem like they are huge circus type catches, but they are huge catches. And you need those. And you see that sometimes. David Njoku made one a few weeks ago, and it was huge. But the best organizations consistently come up with plays like that.
Yeah, I thought Njoku played his worst game of the year. He's had a really good year. I thought he was terrible this game. I know the weather was a factor, but that drop, of all those 3 big drops, I thought that was the easiest play of the 3. It was brutal. And it was the worst one.
You know what? It was brutal, but it was brutal for everybody. It was brutal for the guy throwing the ball who's never played in temperatures like that. It was brutal for the entire Saints team that plays in a dome and has never, as an organization, ever done anything even remotely like that. I mean, at some point, you're all playing in the same conditions. Someone is coming up with a play.
That's right. You got to make a play. The Saints made more plays, which is embarrassing for the Browns. You know, it's interesting, the perspective from the fans, right? Like Steeler fans, and I don't blame them, are ticked that they've been essentially a mediocre team for the last decade. They've not been terrible. Whereas like Browns fans, a lot of Browns fans are like, we can't trade Baker. He won 1 playoff game. Whereas Steelers fans would never think that way because they've been a winning organization. And so your thoughts as a fan, thinking back as a Bengals fan, like when I was a kid, they were pretty good, and then they sucked forever. And then when Marvin Lewis came there, they would go to the playoffs all the time and always lose in the first round. And initially, I was excited that they were in the playoffs a lot. But then I was like, well, they keep losing, so we got to move on and get someone else. The more you're used to winning as a fan or a team, whatever, the higher your expectations go. Your expectations never stay the same. So I understand where Steeler fans come from, even though I think Mike Tomlin is a really good coach. I get it that they're frustrated.
Well, and there's a cumulative effect to that, right? Like, I remember that Bengals year when they were 8-0 at home, and I think it was 2013. You'd probably know better than me. I think they were 8-0 at home, and then San Diego comes in there and upsets them in the first round of the playoffs with Eric Weddle.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like, okay, but it was a great year, and Andy Dalton and A.J. Green, and we've got these young players in Gio Bernard, and I think that's when Ben Jarvis Green Ellis was the other running back. Yep. But then the next year they're losing in Houston. And I could be getting this wrong.
To T.J. Yates. T.J. Yates was the Texans quarterback when they lost.
Yeah, and it was just sort of like after a certain period of time, it's just not good enough to get in the playoffs.
Right.
And so the Steelers early on, when they had the killer bees, when they had Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger and Chris Boswell, and you're like, oh, they're good. Okay, but like each progressive year, you lose in the first round, then you lose in the second round, then you get to the AFC title game. Okay, but now what? And so it's crazy when people want to constantly make change because that's not necessarily the right answer. But right. Tweaks sometimes are. So when people in Pittsburgh say, well, Mike Tomlin is done, they're not listening to Mike Tomlin. It's so ridiculous. Who do you think you're getting that's better than Mike Tomlin? Mike Tomlin is one of the top 5 coaches in the NFL. Mike Tomlin is temperamentally so perfectly suited for this city, for this organization, for this club. Mike Tomlin is going to be the head coach in Pittsburgh until he doesn't want to be anymore. But does that not mean that Mike Tomlin could maybe tweak his staff a little bit?
Definitely. Yeah.
So it's things like that you kind of have to look at. And I'm also not sitting here and saying that
some tweaks are coming.
Kevin Stefanski needs to tweak his staff. This was a very odd year for a million different reasons. But there are certain things. Every great team does some level of self-evaluation. Every great sideline reporter would go back and check her hits. I haven't, clearly, but I will before my next game, I promise. You have to do an evaluation of yourself and really be fair and honest in that assessment, as opposed to just thinking, okay, doing the same thing over and over again is going to get us a different result.
And speaking of which, the Browns, we think, need to tweak their coaching staff. I mean, I think it's time for both Prefer and Joe Woods to go. What say you, Aditi?
I have a hard time with. I don't think that. So coaching is about coaching. It's about developing. Do you see your players getting better? Are they actually teaching?
I don't.
Okay, but now that's not as much on the coordinator as it is on the position coaches. Okay, it's about the position coaches and the type of teaching that they're doing. You know, Kevin Stefanski told us a funny story this week. I had asked Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson had been very sort of open a few weeks ago talking about this half an hour film breakdown that he did with Kevin Stefanski when they were talking football before he decided to go to Cleveland, and just how much he really connected with him on a football IQ level. So then I said to him, okay, now that you've had the 3 weeks of actually working with him in game situations, is there anything about Kevin that kind of surprises you or is different or notable? And he said, well, frankly, I'm surprised at how much time he spends with us. You know, like he just kind of assumed maybe he'd be the head coach and then call the plays. But Kevin's actually in there in the room a lot and really having the conversations with AVP, with the quarterback's coach, all of that. So anyway, so then I went back to Kevin and I said, well, you know, Deshaun said he was actually surprised that you devote as much time to him and the offense as you do. And Kevin said, well, I remember when I first became a coordinator, I thought it was kind of lonely. It was like, well, what do I do? Like, who do I stand with? I miss doing individual drills. And it's the same way as being a head coach. And so that is the nature of being a coordinator. You're not necessarily running drills. It's the position coaches that are running drills. Now, I don't want to call anybody out, but I have been around clubs where a coordinator who was once a position coach, then became the coordinator, had to take over for a position coach for some reason or other. And suddenly that position group played better that week because the coordinator was a great teacher and the position coach wasn't necessarily. So I'm taking a long way of saying this, but Joe Woods is not necessarily responsible if the players themselves are not getting better, because he's not the one that is charged with teaching them technique or hand placement or how to watch film. What is on Joe Woods is the scheme that he sets up. But here's the thing. Joe Woods asked a lot of his players earlier. There were a lot of injuries. There were guys coming in and out. They couldn't necessarily do everything. So Joe Woods, credit to him, didn't keep saying, well, no, my way, this is the way I want to do it. He said, okay, you know what? We need to simplify everything. I need to pare down the play menu. I don't care if we do half as much. I don't care if we do a third as much, but we just need to do what we do really well. And I'm going to let the guys that I have play as fast, as free as possible. And then over the course of the last month, how much better has that defense been? That is a credit to Joe Woods. It's Joe Woods' responsibility to run the defense, to create the scheme, to design what they're doing. It's the position coach's responsibility to make sure that those players are coached up, are developing, are getting better, are watching film in the way they need to watch film. So I think it's very, very easy to sit here and say, okay, it's the head coach. Okay, it's the coordinator. Okay, it's the GM. And to some degree, yes, the buck has to stop somewhere. But I think that we need to really think about who's doing what on a football coaching staff.
Hey, Aditi, if we could just take it back.
Okay, that just dropped dead. See, this is what happens. I
No,
say
not
that,
at all.
Adam's
Not at
kinda
all.
like,
That's true.
tune me out.
I wanted to ask you this question when we were talking about Pittsburgh. I just didn't get to, and I actually want to take it back to Pittsburgh because thinking about the state of my own team right now is just devastatingly depressing. So I just don't want to think about it. So back to Pittsburgh for a second. I'm hoping to hear some bad news here. So don't do me wrong. How does the fan base feel about what they're getting at quarterback out of Kenny Pickett? Do they think that he's the future? Are they settled on him? Are they excited about him? My dream scenario, obviously, is that he is one of those tweener quarterbacks where they don't know if he's good and they get moored with him for like 4 or 5 seasons before finally deciding to move on. That would be amazing. Please tell me that's going to be the situation.
I'm sorry. I can't lie to you as much as I wish I could, but I think that, this is where fans are fickle. Early, I can't remember if it was his first 3 games or 4 games, Kenny had 8 interceptions. But if you actually looked at the interceptions, only 2 of the 8 were really actually on him. One was in his first game. It was a dumb rookie move. And then another was he just didn't see a guy. The other 6 were all somebody else running the wrong route or making the wrong, making the wrong conversion, whatever. So fans were ready to move on from him. And people were saying, well, if the Steelers have a high draft pick, they have to take a quarterback. And the Steelers this, that, and the other, and all that. It was making me nuts because obviously there are so many examples of guys that were allegedly busts, see Jalen Hurts, who all of a sudden are MVP candidates the very next year. Coaching, development, who's around you, all of that matters. Kenny has played tremendously well recently, engineering a comeback like he did Saturday night. That just proves the gamer he is, the moxie that he has, all the intangible personality traits that Mike Tomlin loves. He's only going to get better. And I think Kenny's got a great quarterbacks coach in Mike Sullivan. I would like to see him have a better offense to play in.
I hear it.
But
we know what you're saying.
Yes, I don't know that I'm not ready to say, oh, Kenny Pickett is the next coming, but I don't really know who is. We thought Justin Herbert was the next big superstar, but offensively, what's going on there? What are they doing? What's their philosophy? What are the pieces around him? It's again, we try to think that one player and one player alone changes the fortunes of a franchise, but it just
we're
doesn't
counting
work
on that actually.
I actually think
that's the whole game plan.
I think Kenny Pickett's going to be a mid-tier quarterback. He'll be good enough to be a starter, but not great, and I don't think that's terrible.
That's good.
But we'll see, Aditi. You think he's going to be better?
I hope
than
he's
that?
a little worse than that. I hope he's like sub Andy Dalton.
Yeah, but I think so much has to do what's around you.
Sure.
Do I think Kenny Pickett is Joe Burrow, who picks up everybody around him, makes everybody around him better? I'm not sure yet. It's still early. I don't know that I'm ready to anoint him as such, but I don't think that Kenny Pickett is the reason you lose games. I don't. And I think in the National Football League, if you've got great offensive talent, if you've got great skill players, it all starts with the lines. Let's talk about that first. If you've got a great offensive line, and if you play great defense, then you're right, Adam. I don't think you need a quarterback who's the number 1 or number 2 quarterback in the all-time history of the world.
See, Aditi, I want to dig. I want to get back to the Browns because I don't think Stefanski and Barry and Haslam understand something, right? So as we sit here, you've been witness to, I don't know how many Super Bowls the Steelers got.
Ask any Steelers fan, they'll tell you.
6.
They've won 6.
They got 6 Super Bowls, right? So when
One for the thumb.
So when they fans say, "Oh, we only got 3 playoff wins in 12 years," we on a different level. I tell Bull all the time, you don't understand. You done got your team go to the Super Bowl 3 times. We ain't sniffed. We ain't even. I know people that would cry just to see the Browns in a Super Bowl. And for us, the patient word is just so. It's because what we're looking at is we've been
because
patient.
you had the taste. Gee, the problem is that 2 years ago you were 2 plays away from upsetting the Kansas City Chiefs and going to the AFC title game, so it just feels, how can that happen in such a short period of time? And we know how it can happen. We can run through all the reasons of why it happened. But I think that when you're bad and you're bad and you're bad and you're bad, you're just sort of like, okay, whatever. But then you get that sniff and you're almost there and you can totally taste it. You're expecting the next year to get better. And what a mark of a good team is consistency.
I will say this. That wasn't a sniff to us. A sniff for us is, so when our fans, and we look at our culture, right? Every year our culture for Cleveland is, we have to wait until we waited for Andy Dalton to not be good. We waited for Joe Flacco to not be good. We waited for Ben Roethlisberger to not be good or be gone. All 3 of those guys are gone, and the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Ravens have retooled. Mm-hmm. They've retooled and gotten Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Kenny Pickett. So when is the culture for the Cleveland Browns going to be able to say, we understand what those other teams are doing, and we are going to be competitive year in and year out with those teams?
They get it. The club gets it. That's for sure. I think that's why you saw them do everything that they did to get Deshaun Watson, because they recognize how important that one position is. I just think you need it elsewhere. You need it throughout the organization. This is the conversation that we all had last week about Jarvis Landry and certain players that bring a certain intangible quality, certain guys that you can rely on to make that gutty big play in that gutty moment. And so, again, the pieces are there. I think what's important now is for Browns fans to feel good about how the season ends. You want this team to end the right way, go into the offseason the right note, have guys committed this offseason to making things, to saying, okay, we squandered something, but we're not going to again. And, this entire offense basically is locked up. Who's a free agent on this offense? The center? Is that it? Ethan Pochik?
Yeah. Kareem Hunt.
Everybody's locked up. They're all back.
Yeah.
Kareem Hunt, Ethan Pochik. Yeah. That's it.
Jadeveon Clowney's gone, unfortunately, right?
Yeah, she's talking about offense, but I think Aditi, one of the things I think is what I think from an outside perspective. I'm not in the locker room. My perspective when I look at the AFC North is the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Steelers. And I don't really personally think the Steelers are in any better shape than the Browns. Obviously, the Bengals and Ravens at the moment are ahead because they have more sure thing at quarterback. Watson should be there. We'll see. But the Ravens, Bengals, and Steelers, and the Bengals didn't always have this, obviously. Now they do. They got some killers on that team.
Yeah.
Right? They got some guys that just grab the rest of the team and say, let's freaking go.
Yeah.
And for the Bengals, Joe Burrow is that kind of player. Obviously, on defense, they got Sam Hubbard. They got Mike Hilton. They've got guys like that. We know the Steelers who got their guys. The Ravens have those guys. The Browns don't have those guys. Their best players, Myles Garrett, Joe Bitonio, Nick Nutt, those guys are not those type of guys.
No.
Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. Although, you know, what's funny is that Deshaun Watson was telling me that Nick Chubb is actually talking more in the huddle than he expected him to. Yeah, and then I asked Joel Bitonio about that. I said, what's that? And he said, no, actually, Nick is starting to get a little bit more assertive, and you want to see that. This is something, it's funny because I'll go back to the Jaguars just because I'm thinking about Doug Peterson telling me this. Doug Peterson said he thinks it's about kind of this generation of players. And I think it's why we call a guy like a TJ Watt a throwback, in the sense that there are definitely Steelers players that are afraid of TJ Watt. I mean, he's as nice as can be Monday through Saturday. But on Sunday, you do not want to be not bringing your A game. You do not want to get in TJ Watt's crosshairs. You ever see Myles Garrett look like he's going to smack somebody in the head?
No.
It's just not his nature.
Well, one time.
Yeah.
All right, sorry. But,
That was great.
Well timed.
Yes.
Doug Peterson was saying this about Trevor Lawrence, because Trevor Lawrence, when the Jaguars were struggling earlier and couldn't figure out how to kind of gut out these games, Trevor Lawrence is a guy that has never faced adversity in his entire football playing career. Take out last year with Urban Meyer, which was just, you know, a freak show all around. But in high school, he was a champion. In college, he was a champion. He just had never been that guy that had to yell at players, that had to get a little nasty, that had to drive people. And I remember Travis Etienne, who was his college teammate, telling me, Trevor needs to get that in him. And he was watching The Last Dance and how Michael Jordan kind of would get angry at his teammates, and his teammates didn't want to disappoint him. So Etienne was saying he needs that out of Trevor Lawrence. Doug Peterson was saying, you know, if you really look across the league at this generation's star players, a lot of guys fall in that category of not necessarily having that dog, having that nasty, having that Michael Jordan. I mean, Michael Jordan would beat up Scottie Pippen if he needed to. Name a guy on the Browns that you feel has got that in him.
Nobody.
And I think you're really picking up on something there, because the Ravens have that nasty. I mean, whether it comes from John Harbaugh or not that Lamar Jackson is that, but organizationally, there's always someone there that's ready to kind of knock heads. The Steelers certainly have that in TJ Watt. The Browns, I don't know. I've been saying this to you for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. Myles Garrett, like, come on. I want something more out of you. But if he's not institutionally that person, what do you do? So maybe Nick Chubb.
When we're vetting who we're picking with our second round pick, we should look for people with assault charges.
Yeah, we need some criminals.
What do you guys think?
It's just winning has to matter more than anything. Okay? And like, again, this is not a knock on Myles Garrett. I really, really, truly do believe that Myles Garrett loves the game of football, and that Myles Garrett really, really wants to be in the Hall of Fame, that he wants to go down as one of the greatest ever. I think he's driven to be the best at whatever he does. But another story we heard about Myles Garrett is that when he was at Texas A&M, the whole entire team, Kyle Allen told us this, the whole entire team would go to a movie together on Friday night, and Myles Garrett would sit outside the movie theater reading a book. And we asked Myles about it, and he said, yeah, he'd be reading Jules Verne, he'd be doing something. Okay, sometimes it's not fun to go watch the movie, but that's just part of team building. That's just part of being the team. That's just part of the bonding. I don't know. Again, not a knock on Myles. He has to be who he is. Maybe we shouldn't be looking to Myles to be that guy.
Right.
Maybe there's somebody else that needs to step up to be that guy. Maybe Deshaun is that guy, and it's been hard to do that this year because of all the circumstances. Maybe next year he'll be that guy.
Maybe we could get that from a coach or two. I remember James Harrison knocking Mohamed Massaquoi out cold. I remember him knocking Colt McCoy. They got Colt McCoy too.
Well, the punter, Antonio Brown kicked the punter in the head.
See, this is what I'm talking about.
We need to kick some punters in the head.
Listen, but this is the whole idea, Jay. This is what competitiveness is. This is the conversation I had with John Harbaugh about. This is years ago. We were talking about coaches who it was John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin, and I had kind of grown up on Tom Coughlin and Andy Reid. Bitter rivals, but a ton of respect for each other and genuine affection for each other. And I remember one year Andy Reid was really struggling. Tom Coughlin had said something really wonderful about Andy Reid. I had repeated it back to Andy Reid, and Andy Reid legitimately choked up. Legitimately started, tears welled in his eyes, and he said, Tom Coughlin is a good man. And I remember telling John Harbaugh this story because I didn't think that he and Mike Tomlin had that, and they don't have that. So I had said to John Harbaugh, that existed. You don't have that. And he goes, no, I don't think that's in the league right now. He's like, we pretty much all hate each other. And his brother was coaching the 49ers. And I said, well, what about Jim? He's like, yeah, when he's on the other sideline, I hate him too.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of that nasty that you can be friends with each other off the field. You can be friends when it's over and sign each other's jerseys. But on the field, if Antonio Brown's mother was in his way, he was running over his mother to get to the end
Well, we
zone.
know that.
We've seen his work.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not the best example right now, but point being, it goes back to, since we're at Christmas, let's talk about that play. That's stupid. Not stupid, but the immaculate extension when Ben Roethlisberger throws no time on the clock. Ben Roethlisberger throws short of the end zone to Antonio Brown. Mm-hmm. It's for the division title. It's to go to the playoffs. It's against your bitter rival Ravens. 3 guys are in position to Antonio Brown, and he's able to extend over the goal line. The only reason Ben Roethlisberger throws short of the goal line to Antonio Brown is because he knows Antonio Brown's going to do whatever the heck he needs to do to get in the end zone. Tell me who Deshaun Watson feels that way about right now on the Cleveland Browns.
No, it's fair.
Yeah.
It's all fair, Aditi. We'll see you before the end of the week, right? You're back on Thursday?
Yes, I would love to be.
Okay, with the final show before the new year.
Great job this past weekend, Aditi.
We'll see you later.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Talk to you soon.
Aditi Kinkhabwala from CBS. A lot to get to, but we're going to leave it there because we've got to talk about the Cavaliers, guys.
Good.
Last night, the Cavaliers lose to the Brooklyn Nets, who are playing great basketball. They've won 9 in a row. The Cavs had been 16-2 before this weekend at home. They've dropped 2 straight at home to the Nets, or first to the Raptors, and now to the Nets. The biggest concern for me, guys, in these 2 games, and it's 2 games, you don't want to get carried away, is this is a team that has been led by its defense this year, especially at home. And their defense in these 2 games has been awful.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad.
Yeah.
I'm not making excuses, but I really heard myself say this last night. I'm like, oh my gosh, we missed Dean Wade. And I really said that out loud, and I meant it too. But I was like, we actually could have used him, and I think that we needed that hustle out there, and somebody else just wasn't stepping up, unfortunately. But I do think that those are 2 good teams. They won 5 in a row before that.
Yeah.
I'm not dismissing those losses by any means. But I'm also having a bit of a hard time getting worked up about it. Are you concerned at all based on what you saw?
I'm not. No, I think it's an ebb and flow of the season.
And also, Kyrie just played out of his mind.
And so did
he
Darius
played
Garland.
with a chip on his shoulder while we booed him. He played with a chip on his shoulder because we booed him too. As part of his, I think that's part of his psychosis. I think he's like, all right, turn on superpowers because I am being booed. So obviously, I now have to become an absolutely amazing player.
Let me ask you.
And I think that happened last night.
What percentage of the boos is the way he left Cleveland versus
all of it?
The things that he's been.
It's all of it the way he left Cleveland. If he had left here under different circumstances and hadn't kind of left him hanging and just left in an off year, and then he said all the stuff about how the moon's made of cheese and stuff like that, nobody would have cared because he got us that. Because of that shot, he got us that ring. He just still deserves credit for that. Man. But I don't think anybody. No, we would just be like, that was our lunatic for a while. He helped us win. That's how we'd be.
G, your thoughts?
Listen, you disagree?
You can't win at the highest level of any competitive sports liking people. When you get on that court, you got to play like you want them gone from existence. I don't want to see you win. I don't want to see you get buckets. If you fall down, so what?
Not helping
Maybe
you
might be hurt.
Yeah.
Until you get that level of it's all about competition at the highest levels. The difference between Hall of Famers and winners are, my coach said, you either got to play at a speed or a force that either somebody else can't play with or they don't have the heart or the will to play at that level. And there's a lot of people that are good people, nice people, but they don't have the heart and will to win at the highest levels. There's a reason why Michael Jordan plays, and they have some of the greatest 50 players who never sniffed a ring. Karl Malone, Charles Barkley, John Stockton, Patrick Ewing. You wasn't going to win. You know why he cared that much? And I see games like this. In Brooklyn, Brooklyn is a great team, but they always count on something. They always count on guys like Kevin Love laughing up and joking it up when you see Kyrie Irving. As a general on that team, you as a veteran have to set the tone and say, if they look and see Kevin Love being like, don't give a damn about Kyrie Irving, how many shots he hit, he about to lose tonight. And no, I don't want to shake your hand. That didn't tell Evan Mobley, oh, this is what type of time we on. That's what tells Jared Allen, oh, if Kev Love ain't chopping it up, that means we need to come to play. And there's a couple of things that happened during this game. Remember when Jared Allen had the ball and Ben Simmons was tied up and he just grabbed the ball and threw him down? That's Ben Simmons. He's soft as Charmin. Ben Simmons is soft. He got, but
he is quite soft.
Don't say nothing about his mental wherewithal. I don't care about your mental capacity. I don't care if you ever get it back. That's how you got to play when you competing. And we just talked about the Browns not having that. When you got a bunch of nice guys, that's cool. You can be likable. But the last generation of Cavs was likable, and they won nothing. So either you got to decide out here whether you going to be all in on this is how we going to play the game, or you never going to beat nobody like that.
I think it's a great point.
I think it is,
I don't
too.
like this Kevin Love patty cake with Kyrie Irving. I don't need this.
I don't either.
Yeah. At the end of the game, fine.
That's cool.
When it's
but
over.
Before all this chopping it up.
And he's the veteran on this team, and it sets a tone.
You know what you did say, though? First of all, Kevin Love's going to be what Kevin Love is. He has never been that guy who would go up and say, like, that guy's dead to me. Has he ever?
But by the way, don't tell the fans not to boo. If the fans want to boo, they
sure, that's up to them.
Yeah.
But I do, what you said also is true, completely true, but also gives me hope because I do believe that they did not have that kind of mentality, not even the capacity to have that kind of mentality last year.
Yes.
Because of the nature of the guys who are leading this team. I think they do have this year because I do believe that Donovan Mitchell has that dog in him. And I think he can be that guy
He's
at the
in a
end
little
of
bit
game.
of a slump right now.
Yes.
The last two games he's played poorly.
But that doesn't.
It's
that's
a
not
blip on the
only-
radar.
Exactly. But
we know.
I love. You're right. You have to have that to get through the playoffs.
Yeah.
You have to have that to in the fourth quarter in the most important games. And last year, those guys, bless their hearts, all the talent in the world, way too nice. And this guy can lead them with his meanness too, and say, "No, we're mean right now."
These guys get like the Cavs' big guys. Like Jared Allen's an animal; he's a great player. But Allen and Mobley need a little nastiness.
Because Kevin Durant, you watch Kevin Durant during that game. He's yelling at his teammates. You keep going over the screen. You got to go under.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Like he's talking to him. He fouled out of that game, went to the bench and was like, yeah, I fouled out because you wasn't rotating over there.
Right.
You didn't do it. And you know what? Kyrie Irving, you say what you want. The dude's an assassin. He's in another world. You know, he said, oh, KD went out. Kyrie's like, I'll pull up from half court. You can't stop me. I'm going to go over here. I'll dribble around the whole team.
I mean, those guys are champions. They've won. They know how it's done. The Cavs don't have any players besides Kevin Love who have done it, and he wasn't acting like a champion.
And he was not.
But you're right. Post game, be as kind as you want.
I don't give.
It was in the post game that Kevin Love was asked and immediately said that Kyrie's number should be retired as soon as possible.
Fine. Like nobody cares about that right now. We know his number's going to be retired at some point, and that's fine. I don't have any problem with Kyrie's number getting retired.
Right.
But like, I don't care about that now, and don't like. Kevin Love, we love you now, and maybe some of the fans agree with him, but, like, if the fans want to boo, that's their right. Like, fan behavior can be out of control sometimes. People
See, he was upset.
I don't care if they're booing.
He upset if they booed who, Kyrie?
Yeah.
Bro, come on, bro.
Like, shut up.
Come on, listen.
I didn't see that comment.
Listen, bro. If that's your boy, that's your man, that's on you. But when you first start chucking it up with him, laughing it up, and then you go say, don't boo him, my reaction is I'm going to you as if I'm the star of the team, that's why LeBron always had to get you tightened up.
Right.
That's why he was always cryptic, tighten you up, Kev.
Yeah.
Because you want to be liked.
But the right response for him, though, in that case, is to say, Look, I personally wouldn't boo the guy. He did this for the city. He won this championship. But I am never somebody who's going to tell a fan how to behave or how to respond to something. It's up to the fans.
And the Cavs fan base has been so great. They've been such a spark for the players to play well at home. They've had so much energy. Like, don't try to dissipate that at all.
That's y'all advantage. You think, and I always get mad because he's doing something going out of his way that nobody else on another team would do. Like Kevin Durant or Kyrie ain't mentioned in Cleveland.
No.
The people in Boston don't give a crap about what we do here.
In fact, Kyrie dissed Cleveland when he left. He said it's not a good sports city.
One more thing about this whole, like, the entire Kyrie situation that I'm watching, or he comes to the city, he gets booed, whatever, that happens. But I know that he's eventually going to get his jersey retired here, and he deservedly so. But think about this. The reason that I wasn't as bothered by that last night, that win, was, and they are on, Brooklyn's on a tear. You know that's not going to last. He can't sustain without health or I'm not going to say without doing something controversial or making some stand. It just feels temporary.
I mean, listen, this is the best of what the Nets can be.
Yes.
And if Durant and Kyrie are healthy and focused in the playoffs, they can beat anybody.
Anybody.
But there's a decent chance that won't happen for one reason or another.
Look what happens with Kyrie, though. He gets that championship. That's fantastic. Then he pouts after the next year, leaves.
Yeah.
Then, though, he goes to Boston, and
it was a mess.
It was a mess.
Yeah.
And then they get better when he leaves. Like, think about that. They got better when he left.
This is really, to this point, is the first season that's gone really well for him.
Yes.
Outside of the off-the-court stuff, since he's left Cleveland.
And even there, you had to say, outside of the fact that he refused to play for, or whatever, for a period of time. Or whatever. And then, because even in this year, this Agreed, which has been his best season since leaving, we still have to say, except for that time where other than the fact that he didn't play when he could have for this long period of time. So what I'm saying is, there's always a downside with Kyrie, it usually catches up with you, and I think it'll catch up with them too. Hopefully. And that's why I'm not as freaked out by them as some of the other people in this conference.
I think the Cavs are a nice team. The Cavs have a lot of potential. But the Cavs, for the last two games against contending teams with pedigree, they got bullied. They got bullied against Toronto.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons you guys are not getting the calls that you get. You know why? You guys have a path of least resistance type thing. There's some times, and after they did what Darius Garland did, what Gary Trent Jr. did the first game of the year, that should have been on site. Like, when you play in them games like that, you're supposed to lock in and say, this is how we got to play, because these guys are going to try to use their name recognition and play physical to get us out of our game, but they got another thing coming. And my thing is, the team can get to a point, but they only going to get there if Evan Mobley starts to become dominant. And what I mean, the first two touches of the game, you know that Garland can get it. You know that Mitchell can get it in the fourth quarter. We need Evan Mobley to be a guy that's aggressive in the first quarter. And then we establish that. We can get that on the other hand. Yeah. Because if you can establish him early, and JB got to do this, as a young player, it increases your confidence. Now you unlock him on defense. If you notice the games where he doesn't get the ball early, he's in foul trouble.
Yeah, and I'll say, you look at, he's been in more foul. Last year, I think he averaged, he's averaging about one more personal foul per game this year, even though he's playing the same amount of minutes. And I think people are so scared to criticize Mobley. And I'm not being overly critical.
No.
Because he's got a ton of talent. There's nothing I don't really like about him. But it's fair to say he hasn't taken, to this point, as much of a leap from year one to year two as we expected.
Correct.
That doesn't mean we don't like him or don't like his future.
Doesn't have the upside.
Right, of course. But and remember, Darius Garland's big jump was until year three.
Yeah, I think
it's
just a time. And I think you're right. I think it's a matter of a timetable. We were selfishly hoping that because of what he had shown us in his first year, that he'd continue on that path.
Right,
and it's going to be a little more.
Yeah, it's a little slower
slope.
And I'd like to see him get to the line, as you say. I mean, like, he's taking 2.5 free throws per game.
That's awful. I mean, that's awful.
He's got to get to the line more than that. It'll happen. Now, everybody's offense was gonna come down a little bit. You added Donovan Mitchell. I mean, he's a star player. But I think
I'm encouraged because guess what? they are seeing what it looks like when you ain't sneaking up on nobody.
Yeah.
They know what it looked like when, because Brooklyn came out, they gave them all. I said, dang, KD coming out here aggressive.
Yeah.
They didn't let them get off the mat, because they know what the Cavs are. They know how the Cavs, they're in the 4th slot. They're going to be competing for that 4th slot. And so Boston, you got Toronto. You still got the Sixers. Milwaukee, of course. All these
Knicks
teams,
are playing pretty well.
Playing good. They're going to have an uphill battle, but the cool thing about it is if they work on their game and learn how to work through it in the season and playing hard consistently, figuring out a way to get Mobley the ball, they'll get better because they're younger and they're going to play that same way. But they just got to be consistent in their effort.
All right, guys. Do we have time for some fan questions? I think we got a couple of minutes here.
Yeah, we got.
Let's get them in. I don't have to do a final take. I know Mike's got one he wants to get to.
Who is this brought to by, these fan questions?
Get a couple of fan questions.
These fan questions today are going to be brought to us by BetJack. The time has arrived, Ohio sports fans.
Of course it has.
Sports betting is going live on January 1st. Download the BetJack app today so you'll be ready to get out on all the action. BetJack, Ohio Sportsbook.
Yes.
You can now legally gamble. Well, not yet, but in another
Pretty
week,
soon.
So
what? Sunday?
Sunday.
Yeah. Say goodbye to that expendable income.
You could do it. You could bet on Ohio State. Because
that'll be New Year's Eve.
But you can do it with the Browns though. You can
bet on the Browns. Yeah, that's right.
Your kid doesn't need braces.
Bet on the Browns.
Don't
bet on the. Maybe bet against the Browns.
They all give you some money to play with at the beginning.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Go ahead.
All right. So our
What do we
first
got?
question today comes from Tommy on our community tab, which remember, if you're a member, you can see all sorts of extra stuff on our YouTube community tab.
Even when we're not on.
It's so much
Even
fun.
when we're not
there.
on. We do stuff there all the time. We post shorts. It's a bunch of fun. Wondering how each of you got your start and what you love most about your job.
Oh, wow. This is a real
awkward
one.
I got my start. I was on my mom's couch. I was laid off. And I saw Bruce Drennan on TV, and he was talking about somebody had called in and say, "Hey, Bruce, how do you start broadcasting?" He said, "Go to Ohio Media School, Ohio Center for Broadcasting." I hopped up. I took all the money I had left in my account from my previous job in North Carolina. I went to Ohio Center for Broadcasting, told him I wanted to do it in 2010. And then I graduated from there. I started working the board at 92.3 The Fan, like a couple hours a week. And mainly, I started grinding on the internet. So I started doing recaps and podcasts, and eventually people started listening. I parlayed that into starting the barbershop on 92.3, and from there we rocking and rolling.
I know a lot of people who work in this local industry who graduated from the Ohio School of Broadcasting and who are great at what they do and everything. Those were still some of the worst TV commercials. And if you had to do one thing right, if you're a school of broadcasting, it's make some decent
You'd think.
some commercials.
Right.
They're out of focus. The mic's in the other room.
The Ohio
it's
Media
poorly
School,
lit. It's like, come down to Ohio School Media School. You just like me. Just a guy going like this.
Shout out to
He's
Linda.
got like
by
one
the
of
way,
those
if she's
clapboards.
watching. We appreciate you, Linda. Me and Earl too.
Yeah.
Earl's a graduate too.
There you go.
Oh, Ohio School of Broadcasting didn't close.
I spoke there once.
It changed.
Did you?
It changed to Ohio.
Were you
Media
there?
School.
Were you going there when I spoke there or no?
Changed the Ohio Media School.
2010?
I mean, it would have been like 11 or 12.
No, I was done
you
by
were
then.
gone by then.
It's now the Ohio Media School for
I
tax
started my
purposes.
career, my first paid gig was as the voice of the Batavia Muck Dogs in the summer of 1999.
Go Muck Dogs!
There it is. But I got the experience in college too. I had went to college. We had a good radio station, and that's it. And I've been doing this nonsense for 24 years or whatever it is.
I was the mascot for the Muscovia Musk Dogs.
Muscovia.
What was it?
The Batavia.
The Batavia Musk Dogs. Muck
Muck
Dogs. What is a muck dog? Is that like a
they
term
were
for
the
a skunk
Batavia
on the
Clippers.
holler?
They became the muck. So the muck is they grow onions in Western New York, and the mud they use to grow onions is referred to as muck.
There is a Pokemon, Muck and Grimer.
See, you should talk with my son about that, or Earl and Anthony. They're into Pokemon. They were having a
I do have
Pokemon
Pokemon
conversation
tattoos.
for the show. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. All right, Anthony, you got one more question for us?
Yeah, so from Browns Guy 1999, if you guys could travel to anywhere in the world to escape the cold of Cleveland this weekend, where would it be and why?
Oh,
Other
Maui.
than it being warm.
Maui, without a doubt.
Wow, have you been to Maui?
It's the greatest.
It's amazing,
place on
huh?
earth. Of the places I've been, and I haven't been that many places, Maui's the greatest place on earth.
I'm going to go Maui with Bowl.
Yeah, Come with me.
He already knows the area. He probably knows some restaurants we can go check out. So, yeah, I guess I'll go to Maui with Bull. That's where I would go right now, based on this recommendation.
I would go. I might go back to the Philippines to visit my in-laws.
I'm a little insulted that you don't want to come up with us to Maui, but whatever.
We got plenty of room.
We got a whole trip going.
Maui, see, the Maui thing is kind of like cliche-ish, man. I'll be wanting to go to like places where you could be like, there's only 3,000 people that live here, right? There's only.
But the Philippines is not 3,000 people.
No, there's about 3 billion people.
Yeah, and if you go certain parts of the country, you might die.
Oh no, all parts of the country you could die.
And you'd still rather go to the Philippines than hang out with me and Bull in Maui?
I mean, if you were going to the Maui Invitational, I've always wanted to go to those basketball tournaments in that sweaty little gym.
We got to go to a basketball tournament to
I'm not
earn
going
you?
anywhere indoors when I'm in Maui.
And you got to think about it. I'm not no hot dude. I feel like if you live in Cleveland, I get some weird sense of satisfaction knowing that. Guess what? You got to earn your summer around here.
Right.
You got to earn that. Like,
we do have great summers.
Right. You have great summers, and when you get there, it makes you appreciate it.
All of a sudden in May, at some point, the jackets go away, and you're like,
boom.
Oh.
We would be quite the trio on the beach, though, wouldn't we, ladies?
Yeah, I'm showing some belly.
I'm just blinding everyone with my alabaster stomach.
We got 3 different skin types.
All right.
Very much so.
G, do you have a final take, or you want to pass the mic?
I ain't got nothing.
Mike, what do you got?
I just want to say good luck out there to the Harlem Globetrotters who are playing tonight. They are here in town. You guys ever see the Globetrotters?
Yeah, they're pretty
I
good.
did once years ago.
It's very fun. They are the clown princes of the hardwood. I grew up watching them. Like, they'd be on Saturday mornings. You get to watch them play live or something like that. And then they, of course, aided Scooby-Doo in some adventures, if you'll recall. I remember that.
Neal.
I remember that era of Globetrotters.
Wow.
And then I watched them play, growing up and stuff like that. But I've always been far more interested and fascinated in the team that they play, the Generals, the Washington Generals. Yes, they are. They weren't for a while, and now they are again. But there's just something so beautifully tragic about being on the Washington Generals. This team whose sheer existence is only to lose and be made fun of by a bunch of really good basketball players who are getting attention, and somehow they're the villains too. And so I've always been way more interested in them. Here's a picture of like their team picture. Let's show the first one. Look at this is an early picture of the Washington Generals. That's pretty representative of what they look like.
Look at these schleps.
Yes.
That's like 3 of the 4 science teachers I had.
Go ahead and show
the big guy with the glasses looks pretty tall.
This is their job, is just to get just tomahawk dunked on every day. And then what's even more fascinating, go ahead to the next one. They got to take up these kind of humiliations. And think about this. That's an actual player. These guys have to have some kind of talent and look like
they probably played in college.
They probably played college. They probably play like, these are McNuggets. These guys are a bunch of McNuggets level players.
McNuggets did play with the Globetrotters.
Who have to
went
look
in for a series.
Yeah.
We'll get the video. Oh, yeah, we'll get the video.
As part of a shtick.
Here's my final one
he's
that
on
just,
the Globetrotters.
that I had a question. Here's my final one. Go ahead and show the last picture. Now imagine being the son or the dad of, and I'm not crapping on this guy, live your life. But you know that kid didn't want to be on the Washington Generals. He at least wanted to be on the Globetrotters, and if he couldn't make the NBA.
Sad.
And his dad had to take that picture and just be like, "Here's my son."
How did you get that picture?
It was just online when I Googled Washington Generals. Somebody posted that, and he's like, "Well, here he is.
That guy.
He's still doing what he
do for a living.
He's doing what he likes to do.
He plays basketball. What team's he on?
Yeah, he's getting depantsed and getting his ass beat by a bunch of wizards every night.
He's coming up with a prototype for Napster from the ground up. Like,
That's what it is.
I would love to know the compensation that team makes. Like,
what
does each player get paid?
It's got to be okay.
They get paid at KFC.
I'm thinking about getting a crew together and going and rooting for him tonight down there at the Q or at the Rocket Mortgage.
He said something that was funny, man.
Oh, thanks.
That reference to Scooby-Doo. By the way, Scooby-Doo got so many. I don't think I've ever seen a rerun of Scooby-Doo. Mm-hmm. They had the Scooby-Doos with the Globetrotters.
Yeah.
They had them with the Addams Family.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. They'd had them with Sonny and Cher.
I remember that.
Didn't they have them with the
Batman and Robin?
Gilligan's Island guys?
Yeah, Gilligan's Island,
Batman and Robin.
Phyllis Diller.
Oh my gosh! Like that ain't been any scrappy.
By the way, they're coming out with it's coming out I think next month, a prequel. It's called Velma.
That sounds awful.
It does.
Awful.
But they're doing it.
If it's half as good as Wednesday, it's going to be great.
Wednesday didn't look great, Anthony.
I enjoyed it. It was a good show.
By the way,
Sorry to kill the
Did you watch
momentum
all
there,
of
Bull. I
Wednesday?
apologize.
By the way,
Did you watch all of the show Wednesday, Anthony?
Yes, I did.
Oh, honey.
That's crazy.
Oh, honey.
By the way, I'm going to the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse tomorrow. I'm taking my son to wrestling.
Oh, fun.
I haven't gone to wrestling since I was probably a teenager.
This is like the big thing, like WWE. It's
WWE.
Okay. I guess it's the.
I'm
I guess
taking
it's
my
Rocket
son,
Mortgage.
and then his friend and his friend's dad were going.
That's fun.
So it'd be a good day tomorrow.
Yeah.
Looking
I
forward to
don't
it.
even know no new wrestlers.
I don't know any of the WWE wrestlers. If I do, I don't know that I know them.
Or any of the local guys. The Miz or
The Miz will probably
Yeah,
be
he's
there.
usually there.
I saw them in August. When
That
they
guy
came
puts
through.
on a
He was
show.
there.
Yeah, it should be fun. My son's excited. I think there's going to be a steel cage match tomorrow.
It's so crazy that these guys, the guys that they got now, all of them are movie stars. The Rock, Batista.
Does Rock still wrestle?
No, I mean, but the people who
Oh, who
came
they
from,
were. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like these guys, like Batista's
that's the
in this
goal,
new
I'm sure.
M. Night Shyamalan
Back
movie.
in the day, I mean, Hulk Hogan made movies. Roddy Piper was in a movie called
Oh, yeah.
They Live. Did
Great
you see
movie.
That?
Yeah, it's John Carpenter. Great
One of
movie.
the best fight scenes was him.
It's like
and
25 minutes.
It was nonstop, and it
Yes.
was a great fight.
Yeah, and they were like really throwing each other
Yeah, it was a
into
cool
fire
movie.
escapes and stuff like that. Watch when you're at that wrestling match tomorrow. I want you to listen and watch the crowd and see if it reminds you of a political crowd in current times.
Oh, you think so?
It does. You're going to be freaked out.
That's right up my alley.
Watch it.
Guys, we're out of time. We will see you all on Overtime. We're talking Guardians next.
Overtime.
Who we got on the show tomorrow, Anthony?
I believe we have Leroy, Robert Smith, and Dave Richards.
Loving that
See you on
confidence.
Overtime. See you on the postgame show. See you tomorrow.
Great job,
Here
Anthony.
on Cleveland Sports Show.